Don't need be afraid of the dark. United we stand, together we fall. Where we go one we go all. We dream of the day men are set free, although at times it's hard to believe. With pounding drums, sail through the storm. Where we go one we go all. So speak of the days, ages to come. We drove the beast into the sun. God by our side, answer the call. Where we go one we go all.
It would never have happened with me as your commander-in-chief, and for 4 long years it didn't happen. We are a nation that has weaponized its law enforcement against the opposing political party like never ever before. We've got a federal bureau of investigation that won't allow
afraid of the dark.
We've got a federal
United we stand, together we fall. Where we go one we go all.
It's Saturday, March the 28th, 2026. Welcome and thanks for tuning into this live stream. My guest for today is once again Patriot Underground, and he will be guiding us through the month of March. Please make sure to smash the like button, and if you appreciate this show, and share it with friends and family and people who are just starting to wake up. Both Patriot and I are live streaming at the moment simultaneously, so it would be great if you do a thumbs up, and not down, of course, on both our streams to ramp up the algorithms to make sure this information gets out there far and wide. Every last Saturday of the month, Patriot and I will be providing a roundup of the key events and developments, and we will also be looking ahead to what may unfold in the future. And just take the next slide. Our previous show at one point, thanks to all you guys, even managed to reach rank 7 on the Rumble Battle leaderboard. So what do we see happen in March? The main themes of this month are, of course, Iran, the alleged death of Netanyahu, witness protection, and, of course, Donald Trump, who is always playing an increasingly important role on the world stage. I'll take you through the major events of March. We are witnessing, watching history unfold as Iran was finally liberated by the swift military operation known as Epic Fury. All over the world, Iranian people are celebrating in the streets, showing their gratitude for President Trump, with women removing their hijabs. And Trump called on the Iranian people to rise up and take back their country. Iranian state media officially announced the death of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, also former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was reportedly killed in an Israeli airstrike. And then Lloyd's Bank suspended shipping insurance for oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Subsequently, the Strait was closed off, obstructing free passage to oil tankers, but Trump is confident the strait will open very soon. The EAI sent shockwaves over the world because of rumors of imminent climate lockdowns, a plan titled Sheltering from Oil Shocks. And Hillary Clinton was confronted with frazzle drip during the Epstein deposition, and Howard Lutnick agreed to testify to the House Oversight Committee concerning his connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Iran, Middle East war is ramping up, however, with lots of fake footage, AI, CGI, and even imagery of previous events. And then Trump fires the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christie Noem, and Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of Ali Khamenei, was declared the new supreme leader of Iran. And ABC News reports Iran may be activating sleeper cells outside of the United States. Tucker Carlson claims there will be another 9/11 style terror attack on US soil used to justify a ground invasion of Iran. A clear financial trail was uncovered linking the Khamenei regime in Iran directly to banking and financial channels in London. And Senate Democrats blocked a bill to reopen the Department of Homeland Security amid security concerns, 51-46, that subsequently caused a tremendous amount of chaos at the airports by the TSA. And a new CNN polling reveals that President Trump's approval among MAGA is at a whopping 100%. I think a true poll result may probably more like 117%. Then the New York Post raises a question of if Donald Trump is a time traveler based on a century-old sketch by a guy named Charles Delshaw, a Prussian immigrant who emigrated to the US in 1850 and died in 1923, mysteriously containing the word Trump. And is signed April the 10th, 1920, resulting in 4-10-20, DJT, of course, although taking a closer look, it could be April the 19th with a kind of a blurred 9, but who knows? And we must not forget the Ingersoll Lockwood books from the late 1800s that also suggest Trump time travel. Rumors are circulating on social media of Netanyahu's death caused by an Iranian attack, but to this day it is still unconfirmed. And then numerous video clips of Netanyahu emerge, obviously AI, of him telling the world that he is still alive and kicking, showing more fingers than necessary, his coffee miraculously not spilling, and a magical disappearing ring. Where have we seen that before? And Mike Huckabee seemingly shape-shifting. Chuck Schumer's DHS shutdown continues with disastrous results. Over 300 TSA employees have now quit, while the number of absences have doubled, stretching security checks at airports to hours. President Trump urges on NATO to help the United States in the war against Iran, however, to no avail. Then Donald Trump speaks to reporters at the Kennedy Center board at lunch and says, Pepe is a great friend of all of ours, I think, in the room. And that being, of course, a huge wink to the Anons. Benjamin Netanyahu apparently has missed his 14th consecutive security cabinet meeting, what is very unusual to say the least, maybe suggesting he is dead after all. President Trump welcomes a Japanese delegation to the Oval Office and making a joke about Pearl Harbor. And Trump former counterterrorism director Joe Kent tells Tucker Carlson that President Trump could have stopped Israel, but refused to do so, and that he is reportedly under FBI investigation over alleged leaks of classified information. He also reveals to Tucker Carlson that the last thing Charlie Kirk told him was to stop the United States from getting into a war with Iran. Candace Owens shows newly obtained footage of Charlie Kirk, clearly showing that he was not shot and that it is all staged. And she also supposedly turned on Trump and now is apparently wearing a boot. And we all know what that means, but maybe it's all part of the movie. Talking about movies, actor Chuck Norris, a great Trump fan, passes away at the age of 86. And Robert Mueller also allegedly passes away at the age of 81. And Kirill Dmitriev, a close associate to Vladimir Putin, shares a black swan with a crown on his X account. Subsequently, Trump posts this on his Truth Social: Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. Hopefully we'll hear from Patriot what that's all about. And Trump posted this telling meme on the 22nd of March. Mueller, I tried to find dirt on Trump, but everything led back to you and Hillary. Trump also truthed this: NATO is a paper tiger without support of the USA, and calls them cowards because they refuse to help to open the Strait of Hormuz, and so the Trump administration temporarily lifts sanctions on Iranian oil, allowing Iran to sell oil amid soaring prices. March the 22nd, multiple injuries and 2 dead pilots after Air Canada plane and fire truck collide on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport, exactly 34 years after US Air Flight 405 crashed at LaGuardia. The date, March 22nd, 322. Was it perhaps a satanic ritual? Who was on the plane? A smashed up plane by a collision with a fire truck. It reminds us all of 9/11. And as Q has always told us, misspellings matter. Trump misspelled the word witch and left out the letter D. After 80 minutes, he corrected these errors. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink says tokenization will transform finance like the internet did in 1996, and that all human assets will be digitized. And the Rothschild Bank in Paris was raided and investigated as part of the Jeffrey Epstein child trafficking investigation. Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, claims she is a victim of a foreign-linked influence network that has coordinated operations against her and insinuates it is not Israel. And Candace Owens tells her, "You are a clinical retard. Stick your country music, but you kind of suck at that too." In February, Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that he would attend CPAC on March the 21st. However, he didn't appear at the live event, so he sent his son, Jair, in his place. Couldn't be connected via a video call. Maybe he isn't around anymore after all. Then this Jair Netanyahu guy fully endorses Alexis Wilkins' theory that Russia is controlling influences to bring down President Trump. This movie is getting crazier by the day. Pope Leo XIV hosted the world's most senior exorcist at the Vatican, who reportedly warned him of a terrifying global rise in occultism, esoterianism, and Satanism. President Trump is set to appoint Sergey Brin, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, and Jensen Huang, among others, to the Science and Technology Advisory Board. Hopefully Patriot can shed some light on this as well. President Trump visits Graceland and is even boasting on Truth Social that he looks a lot like Elvis and wants our opinion. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has been caught on video saying that they print money out of nothing, effectively admitting the whole money scam. And Melania Trump suggests using humanoid robots as teachers to teach children in the near future. On Thursday, March 26, President Trump participates in a cabinet meeting. He mentioned make a deal quite often. Deal is mentioned 111 times in the Q posts. And if we look at Q post 111, it says operators are active. We are at war. Good night, BO, referring to Barack Obama. Snow White, Godfather 3, Q. It could be something or it may be nothing. And at that meeting, Trump also said NATO failed the test. Trump saying, never forget this very important point in time. Later on, Trump is all about confirming he is going to back out of NATO, referring to the paper tiger. Soon after, Trump declares that the war in Iran has been won. The only one that likes to keep it going is the fake news. Princess Andrew's ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, has been stripped of her Freedom of the City of York title over her connection to the Jeffrey Epstein child trafficking network. The EU Parliament approved the toughest migrant crackdown to move forward, and this is huge. The International Olympic Committee finally bans trans athletes from women's events. I wonder if the Williams sisters are going to have to give their tennis titles back, or will they be forced to just live with the big lie? The EU Parliament also rejected the chat control plan that would scan private messages. So could this mark the end of the Digital Services Act? And the EU Parliament also voted in favor of removing all US tariffs. All in all, a very bad day for Ursula. Then all of a sudden, the White House starts posting cryptic messages on their X account, just like Q did, some blurred images, seemingly urging to take a 40,000-foot view, and also a kind of Beatles-style clip. When played backwards, you can hear exciting announcement tomorrow, and that's today. And then a post from freedom.gov. Freedom is coming. Information is power. Reclaim your human right to free expression. Get ready. And also a very short EBS type of message and a cryptic video of a camera pointing down a pair of women's shoes with the woman saying, "It's launching soon, right?" Is she referring to the EBS? Who knows? It seems that the IDF is on the verge of collapse, and Trump made an appearance on the 5, and he ended up talking about JFK Jr. And this year we have some interesting releases on TV, film, and museums. And who knows? Q has always said it's going to be biblical. So with no further ado, it's always a great pleasure to have you on my show. Let me welcome the good one and only, my good friend, Patriot Underground. Where are you, Patriot? There you are. Welcome, my friend. How are you doing?
Well, it was quite an overview that you gave. Just like last month, I'm very impressed that you have the ability to distill all of the major events that occurred during March Madness. So kudos to you, my friend. I'm doing well. Always look forward to this conversation. You and I have been working together for quite some time now, and I think it's good that we came up with this idea. It was really your idea to get together the last Saturday of every month and just kind of take it all in and look at the 40,000-foot view is what we typically call it, from above the cloud line, the big picture. And indeed, I think that was a big part of the cryptic messaging coming out of the White House. Just the other day, I put out a post about that, my take on the pixelated images, but we can get into all that. But I'm happy to be here for sure. It's been one heck of a ride this month. You and I were talking backstage a little bit just about never imagining that we would be in March of 2026 and watching all of these events take place that you covered so well in the beginning. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thanks everybody for being here. And hopefully we'll be able to provide a little bit of clarity on all of this craziness that's going on.
Yeah, first of all, my apologies to everybody, because we've got daylight savings time starting this 2 a.m. coming night, but it was always 6 hours difference, and apparently you've changed to DST a few weeks ago, you said, before we started recording. So my apologies for people that have been waiting for an hour, but I promised my audience we'd start at 8 o'clock in the evening, 8 p.m. So my apologies. And I started off with 117 slides. There's so much happened, Patriot, in the last month, and I had to distill it and filter it down to about 60. So thank you for taking the patience, taking the time to listen to all of this. But talking of DST, Trump is going to get this abolished there.
Well, it's certainly something that's come up in the conversation a number of different times. But like we always say, it seems as if ideas are presented and then pulled off the front burner, put on the back burner. We've seen that pattern repeat over and over and over. Everything from discussions about daylight savings to the auditing of Fort Knox. You could make a laundry list as long as you want to. And I've often used that metaphor because I really think that's essentially what they're doing, is they're creating this grand banquet for the public, and it involves, as we all know, a recipe of nearly constant psyops that are designed to break down the cognitive matrix that all of us were essentially born into and indoctrinated with, and that it's a painful process. It takes time. Do I think eventually we're going to see daylight savings time go away for all of the reasons that we know that it was actually implemented, which none of them were actually good for humanity, messing up our natural biological rhythms.
Yeah.
And I would put it into the category, not going to go into a deep dive discussion here, but I would certainly put it into the category of the ever increasing number of silent weapons in their arsenal that they wielded against humanity. Always presenting it as a positive thing, of course, for us, but that really is what the Great Awakening is all about: is coming to the realization that the devil, of course, wears many disguises and always presents himself as a friend, and we come to realize that indeed the calendar that we're operating under and the way that our natural biological rhythms respond to the way that we measure time is quite significant. So I'll just leave it at that and say, yeah, I think eventually we're going to get there, just like everything else. I don't believe that Trump or anybody on the White Hat team puts things out there that aren't going to be revisited at a later date. So indeed, I think we're going to see that happen. But in terms of the the long list of priorities on the scale of things, probably not very high up there for most people.
No. And the same with CBDC as well, eh? He's not getting into CBDC as well, eh?
Well, that really, yeah, absolutely. And of course, there's this big ongoing drama over the Clarity Act, which I've been watching very closely. And just like with every good drama, they're kind of turning it into a nail biter. Are we going to see this Clarity Act pass before we kind of miss our window and everything shifts toward preparing for the midterms and the summer break and everything else? I mean, people are essentially saying that we're looking at getting this done either in April or it's going to essentially just be tabled indefinitely. So, which I don't see happening, by the way. And there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD as they call it, surrounding that. But as far as CBDC, that was really the number one tell for those people out there who are still on the fence and questioning this whole idea of digital currency and blockchain and so forth. And you and I have had these discussions in the past, you recall. To me, that was the primary safeguard that was put in place by Trump and his administration to assure people in the know that this technology is not going to be weaponized against the people. Mm-hmm. And just like when we get into discussion perhaps later on about AI and that whole spectacle at the White House with the robot walking out with Melania, this technology, I'll say this about technology, whether you're talking about blockchain, whether you're talking about AI or anything along those lines, all of it is essentially a tool. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. We evolve, we see technology evolve throughout the course of time, but the principles remain the same. And that is that ultimately all tools, the purpose of a tool is ultimately determined by the human will. And certainly CBDC was what the cabal had in mind. That's what they were going to use to get essentially everybody onto their digital plantation. They knew that eventually this fiat debt prison system that they had built was going to collapse on itself. And this was the off-ramp that they conceived of, was essentially herding everybody into central bank digital currency where they would have complete control. They could literally just shut off your entire ability to operate, to live. I mean, they could with a flip of a switch, and they, of course, were going to introduce multiple different layers to this, including the social credit scores. And this was going to be what I like to call an insurmountable tyranny. Mm-hmm. That the White Hats needed to not only to intervene, but also to repurpose the tool and to use it as what I believe is going to ultimately manifest is going to be a means of providing a level of transparency and freedom and decentralization in the financial system. So it's going to be one of those jujitsu moves where they're using it as a positive. Really, one of the underpinnings, I would argue, of the golden age, taking away the ability of the system, as we call it, that was, of course, run by the cabal. That's, in my opinion, no longer there. taking that system and giving power back to the people. Trump has said that time and time and time again. We're giving power back to the people. And certainly you can't do that without giving people financial sovereignty. I'm going to be able to, and all of us, everyone out there is going to be able to send money peer-to-peer, institution to institution on an immutable blockchain ledger that's decentralized. And I happen to believe, we don't have to get too deep into it, I happen to believe that there are going to be some precious metal underpinnings to that as well, based on some of the things. So, so CBDC, the fact that they made it very clear right up front that they were not going to go in that direction, that was a huge sign for me. And indeed, had they just, I mean, if we heard Trump come out and say, I changed my mind, I think central bank currency is a good digital currency is a good thing, that would be a major red flag. That would be something that we would.
And Paige, knowing Trump, he would do something like that as well. And still there would be a message in it. You don't take everything at face value when he says these kind of things, because it's
I believe that, absolutely. But the way that Trump communicates is that he always leaves enough room for certainty amongst people, amongst the anon, so that we know that despite all of the optics, that this is actually not a reversal in policy, that this is not a betrayal. And that is very, very important for the White Hats to communicate to all of us, because we're the ones indeed holding the line in this information war, and encouraging others to do so as well, because we can see through all of the optics. But there are certain red lines I do believe that they just simply cannot cross, that would constitute a betrayal in the minds of their digital army. That would be entirely counterproductive to the operation, in my view. Doesn't mean that it couldn't boomerang back. Perhaps at some point, maybe Trump could make some sort of a comment in order to rile people up, in order to take the narrative in a certain way and then quickly reverse course. But that's a very touchy issue, because again, this is going to be, I mean, I talk all the time about the fiat digital, the fiat debt prison that we've all grown up in, that we've all been laboring under. But this essentially would be like a supermax digital prison, and that it would go far beyond even just our finances. This would control our entire lives. This was really the blueprint for the cabal's using that tool again as a way to enslave humanity. So that's something that I personally can't imagine that we're going to hear Trump ever taking the rhetoric in the opposite direction on that one. But I wouldn't rule anything out, because again, there have been a lot of things that have happened that have been unexpected. But to me, that would be well, I wouldn't say a bridge too far, unless of course they decided to go forward and try to implement it. But possibly in terms of the optics, you never know. You never know what Trump and the White Hats are going to do.
I mean, it might. What does Dave call it all the time? Controversy or
controversy breeds conversation. Indeed.
Yeah, because how many people might not know what CBDC is? So bringing that up and saying, "Well, it might be a good idea," it'll get everybody talking about it again, and that's what you need. People need to know what it is. I mean,
that is a good point. And certainly I could see the angle on that one. But we'll have to see in terms of the education process. Oftentimes that's exactly what they do. But he has signaled on really, he's been very, very consistent on this issue. So it would be rather surprising to me. Perhaps it shouldn't be, but it would be very surprising to me if I started to hear rhetoric of a different kind. And that would certainly be something we'd have to keep a very, very close eye on. But to me, seeing all of this drama play out in terms of the Clarity Act and stable coins and yields and stuff along those lines.
And the Genius Act as well,
Yeah, well, the Genius Act was a relative slam dunk. I mean, that was pretty much faced no opposition really on a bipartisan, even if you're looking at it in the context of the movie. That passed relatively easily. What we're seeing now with the Clarity Act, of course, is kind of a battle between the giants in the crypto industry, particularly Coinbase. And Brian Armstrong is taking a lot of heat right now, because there's essentially this battle between the banks and the crypto firms over stable coin yields. And the banks do not want, they're trying to come up with some sort of a compromise. And I believe this is all theater primarily, just like everything else that we're watching. but they're trying to come up with a compromise optically so that there will not be a mass exodus from the banks into stable coins, so that the banks would lose essentially all of their yield revenue, and likewise there's this kind of concern about from the crypto firms, especially the giants like Coinbase, that are trying to do likewise. They're trying to protect their own financial interests. So we'll see how that plays out. I certainly would be very surprised if we don't see the Clarity Act enacted into law in the very near future, because the reality of the matter is, even if you're putting the movie aside for the moment, and Trump has said over and over and over, we're going to be the crypto capital of the world, that we're going to lead the innovation, et cetera, et cetera. And if they can't get this passed and essentially it gets shelved and goes into a black hole, all of the innovation is going to be happening in foreign countries offshore. That's where all the money is going to flow, et cetera. So I don't think that they're going to allow that to take place. Yeah. But again, speculation, we'll have to see. But based upon the things that Trump has said about crypto, been very, very, very pro crypto for quite some time now. I remember initially that was a bit of a shock when he did a 180 on Bitcoin. And then subsequently, I started to see the angles there. And but he's been very consistent on that issue, and he recognizes that this really is the wave of the future. This is like it's being compared to the Industrial Revolution. It's being compared to what the internet did for commerce. This is the next level, the next evolution in finance. So the United States has to be on the cutting edge.
As long as cash doesn't disappear, there's nothing wrong.
Correct. Yep. And that would be another red flag as well. And that kind of it would align with, and I'm not trying to scare anybody. We're just talking theoretically. I don't think any of these things are ever going to happen. But if we started to see, rhetoric aside, like you said, I mean, who knows? You never know what Trump is going to say to get people to rile people up, conversation starters based upon controversy, like Dave says all the time. Mm-hmm. But putting that aside for the moment, that would be obviously a major, major threat to all of us, to all of our financial independence. That coupled with, because of course that was the cabal's plan, CBD, cut off cash, make everything digital, and have it essentially be a centralized system that they fully controlled. That then they could leverage that against you to get them to get you to take vaccines, to do whatever the hell they wanted you to do, to enact their agenda, just in order for you to basically be able to live. Now, I say the parallel construction thing all the time, that the White Hats they've constructed their plan in a similar manner in order to educate and show the public, to bring the public up to speed on what was in store for us. But then, of course, they always rug pull and they go in a different direction. Mm-hmm. So, again, as long as we see that general pattern continue of, something gets mentioned or something gets brought up that really initially scares us or kind of gets our defenses up, and then we see it kind of either go away or they take a different direction or something along those lines, that's okay. But if we started to see concrete steps in order to actually remove all of these things, that would be very concerning.
But it's up to the people, Patriot, because if people keep paying with their plastic cards all the time, there's going to be an incentive to say, well, people don't pay, they don't pay with cash anymore, so there's no point keeping cash. So the point what I want to make is it's up to us to keep paying with cash.
Right.
So they don't have the incentive to say, well, you don't pay cash anymore. You're always paying with the credit cards and with the PIN and all that stuff, So it's
our system has been digitized really for quite some time now. This is nothing new. It's not as if all of a sudden people are using conducting digital transactions primarily. I mean, most of the time that's what I do. I pay for things with my credit card. I pay things with my debit card, etc. Mm-hmm. But I also have cash on hand. I always have cash on hand. That is something that it's absolutely vital in order for us to maintain that level of financial freedom and to create that balance. So I think it would be, I guess the point I'm making is it'd be kind of difficult for them to make that argument out of the blue, like, oh, well, nobody uses cash anymore, and all of a sudden everybody's using cards. that's nothing new. That's been around
Because
for
it's so easy, it's so convenient, and we saw it at the beginning of COVID as well. All this dirty money, and don't pay with cash because it's all filthy. It's got the COVID vaccine virus on it, but everybody's using these buttons to push.
Well, that I think was part of the movie.
Yeah.
If you really want the truth, I believe that a lot of what we saw during COVID was manipulated and influenced by the white hats, even though it didn't appear that way on the surface. And again, this was part of the operation. You can't tell people, you have to show people. And unless you show people, then they're never going to believe it. So perhaps that was at least part of and who knows, maybe if I'm wrong and the deep state really was still pulling all of those strings, perhaps that was the road that they were trying to take us down ultimately. So it's part of the operation is to make sure that the people understand exactly what the cabal had in store, the path that the deep state was going to take us down. So that way, when we finally reach these climactic moments, and you and I talked about that backstage a little bit, all of this information is kind of like predictive programming. People they're front loading all of this information, seeding it in the consciousness. So when more damning and more horrific disclosure is presented to the people, they will be able to accept it. They will be able to process it easier and understand that, wow, this satanic group really did have it out for humanity. They really did want to kill us all off. They really did want to enslave us. They really did want to take away all of our money. And so I think that's it's important for folks to understand.
Yeah, let's pivot to March, because we can't really claim that there's nothing happening in March, can we, Peter? Have we looked at March? Have we witnessed March madness? Do you think?
I've been saying that all month. I believe we have. Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, 1 minute at the end of February, we're kind of neck deep going through all of the revelations that are coming out in the Epstein files, and then we wake up on a Saturday morning about a month ago, and we get the news that all of a sudden we're at war with Iran. And it took a lot of us by surprise, I would say. Indeed, I was not anticipating that. In fact, Mike King and I had just had a discussion, I think, earlier in the week, probably Monday of that week, or perhaps it was the week before. And we kind of laughed at the idea of, oh, Trump is sending an armada over to the Middle East. Just like he did with North Korea. But it really wasn't going to North Korea. It was on its way to Australia for a routine training exercise. So we thought that this was all going to be essentially a theatrical bluff. Did not anticipate really that we were going to see the optics of a kinetic action being taken against the Iranian regime. But I've made my case pretty consistently throughout the course of this past month why I believe it's primarily wag the dog. I'm not suggesting that there aren't real ordinances going off there, that there aren't actual deep state hotspots, cleanup operations that are ongoing. We've gone through some of the Q drops pointing out, going back to revisiting the Iran deal, of course, $1.7 billion, all the pallets of cash, the black states, the uranium one. There's a long list there that would suggest, indeed, that there were deep state elements there. I would assume primarily Mossad operations that were masquerading as Iranian state nationals. But nevertheless, there probably is some element of mop up going on, but I don't believe that the narrative that's being spun for the public is in any way, shape, or form the reality of what we're seeing play out in Iran. So.
Yeah. What's all this? I've got a clip here, Paige. I'd like to play it. It's a very short clip, but it's very, very interesting. And I think people will like this. It's this one.
Sure.
Let me tell you, he's a very handsome guy. He was a handsome guy. You don't get better looking. And he was going to run for politics. He was going to run for the Senate. He told me. And nobody would have beaten him. And he probably would have ended up being president because he had...
He said he is a very handsome guy. Mm-hmm. And then he caught himself and he said he was a handsome guy. What's he getting at here?
Well, yeah, that was exactly it. He it's a very interesting time. And of course, there's been a lot of discussion about the series that's been ongoing, the JFK love story. I forget what exactly the title is.
Love story.
But love story. Yeah. Okay. And then at the very last scene, "Don't grieve for me because I'm not really dead," was the very last line in it. Um, And, even initially when those cryptic pictures, the pixelated pictures came out, people were just going, who is that? Perhaps thinking that it might be JFK Jr. Of course, we subsequently found out that it was not, but
Mhm.
indeed, even just yesterday, I believe it was, or today, was it yesterday? Scavino put out a video of Trump walking down the steps of Air Force One with a couple behind him, and people were going, "Well, who the hell is that? Is that JFK?" So it's getting a lot of attention right now, and Il Donaldo Trump posted that famous photo of JFK Jr. and Trump together with the caption saying, "Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, now we're here." So. Folks can make of that what they will. I've always believed that when Q was asked the direct question, "Is JFK Jr. alive?" The answer was no, but we also can recognize
Junior is, I mean, if senior is gone, there's no junior.
some people look at it that way, right? As a possibility. But I always point to disinformation being necessary. This is a fundamental. Let's just go with JFK Jr. actually is alive.
Mhm.
And is planning on making a return and has been communicating with us on the Q boards. You recall that post that wait until you find out who's been talking to you on here. If all of that is true,
Mhm.
it would make no sense logically that Q would ever actually reveal that on the boards, at least in at least in my view. But there have been many other instances where, I mean, of course, the very famous RFK video where he touches his nose.
I've got this one here.
Chloe
Yeah,
this is extraordinary on so many levels. The Deitch memo, and this memo, all of the documents that are not in the public domain, and the Deitch memo is one of those documents. It was a discovery document that was given to me by Mike Hugo, one of the original lawyers in vaccine injury litigation, who could not, they would settle before they got to a jury. And they had to do that because they could not have memos like the Deitch memo being paraded in a court of law.
For the people that missed it, Peter, can you explain what happened here?
Oh, it's very simple. He was asked by somebody in the chat to touch his nose if JFK Jr. was alive, and he's got like this big smile that he can hardly contain, and very clearly, I mean, right after the question is asked, goes ahead and touches his nose, and I believe that he is alive. That's just my gut feeling. Some people have a different point of view on that, and it's not something that we can answer definitively. It was very interesting. The other thing I forgot to mention was the scene where they pull up to the Cessna. Then the actor that's playing JFK Jr. and Carolyn get out of the car, and they walk up to the pilot. The pilot looks very much like it could be an older JFK, Jr. So a lot of comms pointing us in that direction. And as you know, there have been a number of different entertainment pieces, let's just call them, that seem to be pointing us in the direction of a lot of people who we think are dead, perhaps aren't. Somebody mentioned Elvis, Michael Jackson. So yeah, that movie's coming out, and it's so it seems to be like there's this sort of this sudden flurry of all these different comms. Go ahead.
It's unbelievable. We've got, like I said, Michael Jackson. We've got JFK. Lady dies, in the background somewhere. We've got Elvis. We've got a few clips of Elvis here in the moment. Right. Trump visited Graceland, but we also had Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, and allegedly she was at a Trump rally. What do you think of this, Patriot?
Yeah, I've seen that one. And there's also another one of JFK Jr. Supposedly wearing a Trump hat, a green Trump hat. I don't know if you have that one too, but yeah.
I don't have that. Do you have that? Do you have that one?
I don't have it. I've seen it circulating again, but this is nothing new. I mean, this stuff has been around now for a while now.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting. But I think
It
the
is.
key thing from an analytical standpoint is, and I've talked about this before, I won't belabor the point, but just imagine the impact.
That was going to be my question. Yeah.
Oh, go
Wow.
ahead. You wanted to ask a question? Yeah.
What would be the impact if JFK Jr. were to suddenly appear? I mean, and
Well,
Michael Jackson and Prince and all these people.
that really is the most interesting part to me, because it would make perfect sense that if this was what we believe as an operation that was decades in the making. This is not something they're just doing off of the cuff, right? This is something that's been planned now and has
Yeah.
ultimately been in motion for a very long time. It would make perfect sense to bring back all of these individuals to substantiate the truth as it's being exposed. Because when you look at the optics of what where we're at right now, Maestro, and I've talked a lot about the manufactured division. I've talked a lot about the unity that's actually beneath the surface of that. But let's just look at the optics and everything at the surface level. The country seems to be extremely divided, right? There seem to be plenty of people out there, I would say a majority of people who would still tell you, if they're
Mhm.
being honest in their personal lives, that they haven't seen any mass awakenings occur. They haven't really seen the normies waking up. I mean, sure, we're starting to get more stories that are coming out and that are suggesting that we're moving in that direction. But most people still see a very divided world, and they're still alienated from their family, ideologically, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can imagine that if when I shouldn't say if, but when the floodgates, when the drip, drip, drip stops and the floodgates finally open, as Q told us that they would, and these horrific truths, everything from COVID to the election theft, really the systemic industrial scale election theft, to the much darker stuff, the satanic ritual abuse, the child trafficking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once those floodgates open, and not only is the information revealed to the public, but the accountability, the justice, the replay of the justice and the executions and so forth, you can imagine how necessary it would be to have individuals who are universally loved and respected, people like JFK Jr., who everybody believed was going to be president. And Trump even, I mean, when he brought him up in that interview, in that discussion, he pretty much mirrored that Q post that you put up there. Oh,
Yeah.
he was going to run for the Senate in 2000. He was going to go on to be president. Nobody would have been able to stand in his way, et cetera, et cetera. He was universally loved. Somebody, yeah, and also, yeah, the plane crash. Um, I always thought it would have been great if they put plane crash in quotes because we believe that
Yeah.
he actually faked his own death, but they did put the start in quotes, so that's
But
kind of interesting.
but the plane did crash.
Well, sure, yeah, but that doesn't mean that he's dead, of course. We know,
Oh,
and
no, but the plane did crash.
yeah,
But the
he crashed.
JFK has to be President Trump's Trump card, like Mildred says here.
Well, I think that probably has many different meanings, but ultimately, I think that's where I'm going with this. But that really would be the ultimate trump card, the one individual. If anybody out there could unify the country around what President Trump was doing, it would be John F. Kennedy Jr. And of course, in the context of the entertainment industry, Michael Jackson, and
Prince,
and even going back, Prince,
Elvis.
Elvis, if Elvis is actually still alive, but to substantiate the truth, because there's going to be this massive cognitive dissonance where people it's going to be so intense and severe that that folks are going to have a really difficult time processing it. So
Two,
you would
two,
think that
two,
they would want to have these individuals waiting in the wings for the right moment, and the
absolutely.
fact that they're presenting all types of comms in this direction at the same time as we're closing in. All of the optics are closing in around the country being saved for last. All these are indicators that we're getting close
Yeah.
to the end of the
Yeah.
movie. That doesn't mean it's going to be today, tomorrow, the next day, or even next month, but it certainly is a very positive indication that all of these things are now, once again, being presented in a very big way.
Yes.
Seems to suggest that we're entering into, let's just say, the final act of the movie.
I mean, two things. You mentioned it just now. People would listen to these icons. They are icons. I mean, people would take notice, and they can say things that Donald Trump can't say. Because left or right, they would, there's still a lot of hatred against Trump. I mean, it might be escalating as well because it's taking too long. People starting to blackpill. People are losing patience. But if you get these people, people in his own cabinet, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, they're saying things that Trump can't say.
Right, but they're still very polarizing figures, and that's the difference. These individuals, like JFK Jr., I mean, he's in an entirely different class, of course, because being the president's son, and of course, we know that really the modern iteration of the Q operation began after the JFK assassination. That, of course, was engineered by the Mossad, by the Zionists, for a number of different reasons, but the primary one being that he was standing in the way of Israel getting nuclear weapons. And
the CIA as well, eh? The CIA was in it as well, eh?
Well, of course, but the CIA is subservient to the Mossad. That's made very clear. They're at the top of the pyramid in terms of the intelligence agencies. We know who the intelligence agencies work for. So him being the president's son puts him in a unique category. And of course, it's not as if people aren't aware that Donald Trump was once friends with JFK Jr., but you also have to appreciate the passage of time. For the normies, this was back in the 90s. Like, this was like ancient history. And so it really doesn't have any bearing on their Trump derangement syndrome. But if the floodgates open and everything that we've been talking about comes to pass and is fully presented to the people, and it's made clear that Donald Trump, and I happen to believe, speculation, but I happen to believe that they're really not going to have much of a choice but to share to at least some degree with the public what's been going on this entire time, that there has been a military operation that's been going on, and that Donald Trump, I mean, he said it right during his initial speeches. He was invited by the military to run for president.
Mm-hmm.
He came out and said it all the way back during his first inauguration. You recall the military coming and standing behind him and so forth. And he said it multiple different times. I was invited to run. I have the military behind me. I have 200 generals behind me. Mm-hmm. To me, very solid indications that there is going to be revelations. There's going to be disclosure of the Q operation. So that puts Trump in an entirely different light. And then if you add JFK Jr. to that, then it puts an entirely different level of not only credibility, but also it will help folks be able to process the enormity of, like the Q drop said, the enormity of what's coming is going to shock the world. And I think that there's probably a double meaning to that. It's not just about the enormity of what's going to be exposed, but also the enormity of the revelation of how they actually did it. Yeah. And I think that Trump's given us some pretty solid clues. The post that he put out on my birthday last year about Biden being executed, being replaced by a clone, and now we have all of the memes circulating showing Joe Biden 2.0 or whatever, looking quite a lot like the robot that walked out with Melania.
Yeah.
These are all indicators that they're going to have to square with the American people and indeed with the world. And there's an even deeper level to that, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of rebuilding this world, rebuilding our nations, rebuilding our societies on the foundation of truth. And you can't do that in the context of a psyop and a movie, which are useful to a certain point. But if you really want the Great Awakening to commence, it's not just about what happened. It's about and what evil did, but it's also about how good rose up and essentially conceived of this incredible military operation to bring them down. So that the historical record needs to be set straight, and everybody out there needs to understand what they've been witnessing over these past several years, in my opinion. And I believe in full disclosure, not just in terms of the evil, but also in terms of the military operation.
June 12th, disclosure day.
What's that?
June the 12th, Disclosure Day.
Oh, the movie. Yeah, right.
Movie.
Yeah, there's another calm. There's another calm right there. They're just raining them down on us. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned that it will shock the world. I mean, if JFK just appears, that will be a shock to everybody. I mean, maybe a lot of people will get a heart attack.
Well, think about it. Let's just say he does. Let's just say he's alive, and let's say he does reappear. Why in the world would he fake his death? Why in the world would he go into hiding for a few decades only to come out at the exact right time if there wasn't a military operation going on? See, the two things can't coexist. Like, you can't have the reemergence of JFK Jr. and not tell people the truth about the Q operation.
And JFK's assassination, maybe, yeah. Well, they did this to my father as well, something like that.
Yeah, well, who knows how they're going to script it? That's the one thing we can never really predict with any kind of accuracy how exactly the script is going to go. But I'm just talking really just applying logic and reason and common sense. If this is the Great Awakening and these people still are alive, and we're going to get this massive floodgate opening of disclosure, and we seem to be steadily building up to that point, you can't really move. I use the word movie as a verb. You can't really movie your way out of that. At a certain point, there has to be a transition back into reality where people, because if there's no truth, or even if there's a partial truth is not the truth. You
can't have a cliffhanger at the end there.
Maybe I'm a purist in that sense, but I know a lot of people in my audience agree with me on this. Every time I bring it up, I'm met with overwhelming support for this. That it's not just, I mean, forget about frazzle drip, forget about all of that stuff. I'm not saying forget about it, but putting that aside for a moment. Usually that's the context of the conversation. We want full disclosure. We want all the evil exposed. And by the way, the fact that the last Epstein files drop got everybody talking about cannibalism and eating babies and so on and so forth seems to be a pretty positive indication that they're gonna go there. All right, they may not, like I've said many times, they might not put frazzle drip up on the big screen in Times Square, nor do I think they should. You don't want to traumatize people to the extent that they'll never come back from it. The choice to know will be yours. You'll be able to go and see these types of things, but you have to view them at your own risk because you're never going to be the same after you see them. But that's not the whole context of the conversation. The importance of rebuilding and realigning the consciousness and the psyche of humanity around the truth instead of lies, it cannot be overstated. You can only go so far with the psyops and the deception. To use them tactically for all the reasons that I routinely discuss makes perfect sense. But not unless there's going to be a switch that gets flipped and we have to transition out of the movie. And I don't think it's going to be a gradual process like, oh, people are just going to eventually figure it out. No, I think that there needs to be a very deliberate communication from the president, from the military, from JFK Jr., if he's still alive, from all of these individuals that they have waiting in the wings to explain to folks the evil that we were up against, where they planned on taking us, and how the military intervened and they did what they had to do to save humanity and rebuild the world on that foundation of truth. Because otherwise, to me, if you're giving people just half the truth, or you're expecting that somehow all of the deception that's being used to wake people up is going to just naturally transform into reality, I think you're fooling yourself. I just don't see it.
Yeah, you mentioned robot twice. I've got this clip here, so just take a look, Patriot.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I told my wife I had a very important meeting regarding the Iran situation. Anyway, it's better that I'm not there in person because Emmanuel's wife, Brigitte, she kind of freaks me out a little bit. Ever since Crazy Candace said that Brigitte was a man, I can't unsee it. I mean, have you seen her sitting down? Total man spread, believe me. And the way she manhandles poor little Emmanuel, no bueno. Anyway, my wife told me not to say anything about Brigitte's possible penis, so I'm just gonna go back to my meeting. Enjoy your day, everyone. Toodaloo.
You gotta have. I'm glad you played that, man. Because you got to have a sense of humor through this thing, honestly. Because you'll go crazy if you don't.
That's what's going on here with this robot, because people are freaking out. Oh, this AI thing and robots, and you see Trump's on the wrong side, and even Melania is telling his robots and what's going on here.
Well, let me pull up a post that I put up about it, and that might answer that question, or at least give folks my take on it. So I saw this. And by the way, this is what I was referring to just a moment ago. These memes right here of Biden. Yeah. I mean, come on. It literally looks like they just put a Biden skin over this robot. And if you think that this wasn't deliberate for people to be able to pick this stuff out, I mean, you're kidding yourself. But in terms of what the big picture here, all right. So this was, of course, the video that you just showed. I mean, it was a comical take on it, but there's Melania walking out with this humanoid.
She doesn't really look at ease there, does she, Patriot? She's walking a bit, a bit. She doesn't feel.
I don't know. I didn't really pick up on that, but who knows? I mean, she certainly, Melania knows that what she's doing and the role that she's playing, and I'm sure can sense some sense of perhaps performance anxiety when these big scenes in the movie. And this was a big scene. Don't get me wrong. This was a big deal.
Where was this? Where was this?
What's that?
Where was this? Because Brigitte's there as well.
This was at the White House.
When was this?
Oh, this was on the 25th, a few days ago.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
So it says here, this was open source. Intel put out this post, and everybody was picking up on it. FLOTUS arrives at her AI summit, joined by a U.S.-built humanoid robot. And of course, it gave a lot of us iRobot vibes, Terminator vibes. You can say whatever you want, call it what you will. But this is the post that I put out, and I think it helped a lot of folks kind of put it in perspective, or at least that's the feedback I got. So I said that the way I see this is a perfect example, and I brought this up, this term that I use of parallel construction strategy is a perfect example of that. This spectacle is scripted to represent having arrived at a crossroads in human civilization, which was always an inevitability. So what I mean by that was this technology. See, a lot of people, they take issue with the technology, and they say, well, we shouldn't be involved in AI, and we shouldn't be involved in all these potential technological tools that could be used to enslave us. But the reality of the matter is that they're not going away.
You can't go back to prehistoric times, huh?
You can't. And not only that, you also have to keep in mind that the United States doesn't exist in a vacuum. No country does. If we don't innovate and we don't use these tools and take the lead, other countries will. So simply sitting on the sidelines isn't a possibility. So having said that, let me continue here. So what I said was that the white hats are showing us, again, all caps and showing, because you can't tell people, the potential for both dystopian and utopian outcomes. See, most of us initially, we saw this and we immediately thought dystopian. Why? Because of the predictive programming, all of those movies of the robots becoming self-aware and taking over and essentially enslaving and killing off humanity. That's exactly what they wanted to trigger, that fear in people. However, there's also the possibility of this being used for the underpinnings of a utopian society. So I continue. The possibility this technology could enslave humanity as depicted in the predictive programming movies, I just talked about that, is fully intended to prompt a fear-based debate, because this is exactly where the enemy intended to take us. The good guys are using the optics of our future still being negotiated. What do I mean by that? Well, this is part of the movie, folks. These are all optics. As a psyop and this is what they're doing with just about every issue you can think of and you can name, as a psyop to force meaningful discussion. Like we just said, controversy breeds conversation. Force meaningful discussion about the direction of humanity and the ethics-based question that will determine our future. But the truth is that the future has already been secured by our military. Why? Because the risk of allowing this technology being wielded for evil were too dire. And I would also probably put CBDC in that same category. too much of a risk to allow anything organically to play out on that front, because these are levels of tyranny that you don't come back from.
And digital ID as well, Peter. And I straight away think about the TSA at the airports and the Safe Act. You know, you have to have ID. I mean, people are automatically thinking, "Oh, they're pushing us into this digital prison," but it's also who's in control, eh?
But nobody would ever. Well, that's really that's kind of the punchline, is what I was getting to. The truth is, you made a couple of points there. There are some levels of tyranny you aren't going to come back from once that prison is constructed around you, because that's essentially what it is. That's what the cabal was building. They were building a digital prison.
Yeah.
Of financial. They were going to use heavily armed robots for policing and suppressing the people. We're talking just like they depicted in the Terminator movies. There would be maybe a small band of resistance of human survivors that would be battling these machines to the death. That would essentially be humanity's future. There are some levels of tyranny you don't come back from. Once that prison is constructed, you're not getting out. The only thing that you can do is resist to the death. So they knew that.
Yeah.
And so along those lines, like I said, allowing this technology to be wielded for evil was just too dire. It's just like they had to take certain cabal leaders, if you want to call them that, but certain players off the chessboard very early, covertly, because they were too dangerous. Certainly some of the prolific pedophiles we've heard about, like Tom Hanks and Kevin Spacey, that were just absolute monsters. It was too dangerous to allow these individuals to continue even existing. And then, of course, people above them as well, the Rothschilds, etc., whom I believe were all taken out very early, but all for the same reasons. They were too dangerous. They had to be dealt with. So this technology, this AI technology, falls directly into that category. So what I said was, what we'll learn from this at the end of the day, this is the important takeaway, is that human will is what determines the purpose of a tool. And that we were spared, like I just mentioned, we were spared hell on earth by those who intervened, namely our military, to save the world from an insurmountable tyranny. Instead, this technology is going to be used to create an abundance, to refocus our consciousness, to serve as the underlying foundation of a quantum leap forward in humanity. So that was my general take on it. Was essentially this was all done to show us both possible options. Like, this is path A and this is path B. We can go down the path of evil, dystopia, or this technology can be wielded for good as a main driver of the golden age. And I think that's exactly what Melania was trying to communicate. Not only that, she also mentioned made a reference rather to Plato, and Plato's most famous work, of course, is The Republic. And I remember reading that when I was in my college years, and it brought me back to the allegory of the cave. And that's essentially all about the process. I did a very long post on this. I'm not going to pull it up in the interest of time. Folks can check out my X if they want to see it. But the allegory of the cave applies perfectly to the process of awakening and the experience of Anons over these last several years. You know, essentially that we're all born in this dark cave, and only few of us dare to try to escape the cave and try to reach the light. In other words, to try to achieve some level of enlightenment. And when we finally do, we go back down into the cave. We're not exactly welcome in that cave anymore, because the people they're just so programmed. And there's a lot of other layers to it, but they put that in there in the script, I believe, for a reason, to once again give us a wink and a nod that this is not the dystopian future that it looks like. I mean, nothing is what it seems, but they have to present both sides to the people.
I mean, we've grown up that way, to be conditioned to in a society of fear. It's all fear based. So we are of course very very critical, and not so optimistic about. But it makes me think of slide 44 out of my presentation, Patriot. It's this. like I said, you got Sergey Brin, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, and Jensen Huang are going to be added to the Science and Technology Advisory Board. I mean, when you look at these names, you start scratching your head and thinking, bloody hell, what are they going to do on the board? Are these 2.0s, or what are they? Or have they submitted to Trump? Or, I mean, these are probably very, very evil people. So what are you going to do?
Well, they're definitely not the originals. That I can tell you. Let's put it this way. And for anybody who doubts this, and I don't really think there's anyone in my audience or your audience who would be really that skeptical about it. But if you haven't been convinced yet, folks, of the ability of AI and also mask technology and also voice cloning technology by this point, and then I don't know what to tell you, because that's essentially what we learned under 4 years of fake Biden. They were able to convince most of the world, aside from those of us who were truly awake, that this clone robot, whatever it was actually the president of the United States. I mean, think about the enormity of that deception. So they can do this type of stuff very easily. I don't believe for one moment that that any of these individuals, whether it be Sergey Brin, whether it be Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, et cetera, are the originals. And even if they are the originals, and even if I'm wrong about that, they're certainly under submission. These are deeply evil people. Now, the question really then becomes, well, why would Trump put them on this board? What's the point of that? Well, there's a couple of different possibilities, and I can't say that I don't know, because I don't have the script. It's well known that Trump puts certain individuals in the spotlight, that he wants people to focus on, that he wants people to he wants to give them attention. He very famously with Fauci. Okay, that's usually the archetypal example of Trump's strategy as far as that goes. So is that really where this is going? We're seeing the optics, of course, of this Israeli Zionist takeover of our media, taking over all of the major networks and implementing censorship. It's like they say, if you want to know who rules over you, it really comes down to who you're not allowed to criticize. So I think this is a big part of the exposure operation. Where they're actually going to go with it, that's anybody's guess. So that's one possibility, and that's kind of the general direction that I lean in. The other one is that Q told us that for the better of the country, certain people were essentially going to be allowed to, they're going to be dealt with behind the scenes, but we're not going to essentially present that to the people, that we're going to, I can't remember exactly how the Q drop reads, but it's something along those lines. For the betterment of the country, not everyone is going to be, it doesn't say executed, but they're going to essentially be given a script and they're going to do what they're told. Okay. And so is it possible that people like Zuckerberg and people like Larry Ellison fall into that category? Maybe. Or maybe it's some combination of both. So I don't really know where they're going to exactly take that. But again, my gut instinct is that when we're talking about Iran, when we're talking about Epstein, when we're talking about Charlie Kirk, when we're talking about Butler, and this was why Joe Kent was such a big story this past month, it all focuses back on the country being saved for last. And why are they being saved for last? Because they're being shown to be in complete control of our government, to own all of our politicians. Now, did I expect that we were going to see these optics with Trump as president? No, I didn't. But I'm also not really all that surprised either, because it makes a lot of sense that they're using Trump's persona as a fifth generation weapon. They're using Trump's persona to keep the left engaged, to keep on issues that otherwise they wouldn't even be paying attention to. Epstein being the prime example of that. But their opposition to Trump is enough to keep them engaged and essentially to oppose him on every issue. So if Trump is taking the wrong side of every issue and you want to get the left on the right side of every issue, that's a very useful tool. And then as far as the conservative element, the optics of we're seeing of this split in MAGA of Israel first neocons versus America first patriots, Trump is being used again as a very divisive tool to be able to break the programming of the Zionist neocon mentality. People are going, well, what the hell is this? This isn't what I voted for. This isn't what I wanted. We didn't want another war in Iran. We want to fix our own country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of the narratives that are being deployed by people like Candace Owens, by people like Tucker Carlson, by people like Joe Kent, Marjorie Taylor Greene, on and on and on. They're the ones who ultimately are on the right side of, at least in my opinion, of MAGA. That's what we voted for. This is what we wanted. We didn't want another endless war in the Middle East. And I don't think we're getting, but again, we're talking about the optics here. We didn't want an administration that was going to pull back on mass deportations. We didn't want an administration that was going to basically rug pull us on Epstein, all of these things. So they're the ones essentially that are carrying that MAGA torch while Trump is taking the slings and arrows so that eventually it would break the programming of the Zionist neocon, because that's really traditionally, that's been for decades now, that's been the foundation of the Republican Party. And that's all being exposed right now, and Trump is being used as the exposure tool. So I think it's absolutely brilliant what they're doing. And Q told us that, as far as the slings and arrows go, all of that stuff can be undone. That kind of ties back into our earlier conversation about JFK Jr. and revealing the PSYOP, revealing the military sting operation, whatever you want to call it, to the people. The penny would drop and it would make sense. Oh, Trump was taking the wrong side of all these issues because he had to in order to move the Overton window. And when you think about it, what I just described, what really has been for decades now, the Republican Party, we call it the uni-party, but basically it's just two different wings of the cabal. On one side, you had the quote unquote Republicans. We're all Zionist neocons pushing these endless wars in the Middle East, like we got under Bush, right? And then on the other side, you had the Obama, George Soros, Bill Clinton, Brzezinski mentality.
Yeah.
Mike King has been brilliant in terms of describing that the cabal is not one unified. I mean, sure, in terms of their ultimate goal, they're unified, but how they wanted to get there, they had a lot of disagreement, different wings inside of the cabal. And that's what I believe is represented. Our political system was built around that division. On the one side, you have the neocon Zionist agenda. On the other side, you have the George Soros, Brzezinski model of globalism.
And you've got the AIPAC as glue, huh?
And yeah, right, exactly. And it's not as if they were monolithic. I mean, of course, there's a lot of crossover there. There's a lot of complexity. But what I'm pointing out is they didn't universally all think the same way. But our political system apparently was in line with and I think that's going to be the Great Awakening, is that our political system was essentially two different sides of the same evil bird. They're two different wings of the same evil bird.
With the same destination as well, huh?
That's correct. That's correct. And they're just different ideas about how to get there. And they're using Trump as a fifth generation reverse psychology weapon in order to get people to understand this, to be able to get people to see it, because they would never believe it otherwise. That's what they mean. That's what we mean when we say you've got to show the people. And yes, it's a painstaking process. It's a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. I mean, we all wish it could go faster, and we all wish, and there's lots of things that we can criticize. But war is never perfect. And I believe that this was the only way that they were ultimately going to unify the country without massive civil war, bloodshed, etc., and the hell on earth that was in store for us had we gone in that other direction, which is why Q told us we were prepared to do the unthinkable. And I don't doubt that for a second. If they were not successful in getting Trump legitimately elected in 2016, there would have been a hot coup, and there would have been a very, very bloody civil war. And it would have been terrible. So as bad as this is, I mean, that's why I always bring this up. We have to keep things in perspective and remember that, yes, it sucks. Yeah, I mean, believe me, we're all suffering. I mean, people say to me all the time, "Oh, I want a new monetary system. I'm broke. I have no money in the bank. We're struggling. We're all the." I'm like, I'm not here to minimize that for anybody. And trust me when I tell you, folks, I have my struggles too. I'm no different than you.
Yeah.
But the alternative is that most of us would probably be dead by now, and have children enslaved, and this would literally be a hell on earth. So I just mentioned that to remind folks to keep things in perspective. And you mentioned a lot of people getting black-pilled primarily because they're losing patience, and they're also listening to the wrong people, I would argue.
Yeah. Q says it. Hey, Q says, "Be careful who you follow," something like it.
Yeah. Be careful who you follow. Indeed. And in the context of, some people are just in it for the money, talking about that angle of it, it was really the main gist of that drop. But sure, that's an element of it. But I think the even greater threat, of course, is that there are a lot of, and this is what's so important for people to understand. 3 different levels of the cabal. I've talked about this before. I apologize if it's something that you've heard me say multiple times, but it's worth repeating, because if you really want a 40,000-foot view and understanding of what's going on here, you have to grasp this concept. They took out the top level right away as soon as Trump came into power, and probably even before Trump came into power. I think that there were ongoing military operations to go after the Rothschilds, to go after the the black nobility families, the people that you don't even hear about, you don't even know about. Most people have never even heard of them. They had to take out that power, the leadership structure had to be taken out covertly. And a lot of the early Q drops point directly to that. The kinetic action that was going on while we were all, this even predates COVID, but certainly it accelerated under COVID. While we were distracted with a million different things, there were covert operations to take down the top tier. I very strongly believe that we watched in plain sight on Inauguration Day. Well, first of all, I'll take a step back. I believe we watched in plain sight on January 6th, Trump invoking the Insurrection Act.
Yeah.
And then on Inauguration Day, we had 30,000 plus troops descend on DC.
And 10 minutes too early, yeah. 10 minutes too early.
Yeah, and we could spend all day talking about all the anomalies there. But the point being is that that's when they took over DC. And that's when they essentially, at least in the United States, took out the mid-level controllers that we essentially call the politicians, the puppets. So first they took off the puppet masters, then they took out the puppets. They did it in plain sight. But what remains is the bottom base of the pyramid, which is the largest number of people. That's why we always point to the massive amount of sealed indictments that are still out there, the mass arrests, which I believe are going to happen indeed. Now, why am I pointing all of this out? Well, because you have to understand that a lot of these enemy operatives are still out there. Yeah, look at that number, 641. A lot of these enemy operatives are still out there. And indeed, they are engaged in battle with us on X, on social media, on the information battleground. But the key thing is that what they don't realize is that they've already lost. Why had they already lost? Why Q told us nothing could stop what's coming, because their leadership was decapitated and they don't even know it. They're taking orders from white hat operatives. And I've talked to people like Ricardo Bossi, and who's got some contacts as well, who's in large part substantiated my analysis on this, that they've used the compartmentalization of the cabal's hierarchy, their power structure, as a weapon against them. They've reversed that weapon, just like they reversed CBDC, they've reversed AI, they've reversed all the tools. Likewise, these are all jujitsu moves. They have white hat operatives who are posing. And again, the voice cloning technology, the mask, it's just very easy to do, folks. All right. Unless you know somebody truly intimately, you're not going to know the difference. So these people still believe they're taking their orders from their higher ups, when in reality, this is all game theory tactics. They're being led to their own destruction. They're being led in the direction that the white hats want them to go. But I point that out because it's like you said, be careful who you follow. There are still enemy operatives out there I believe that most of the high profile people are actually part of the movie and they're playing their role as white hats, but that doesn't mean that there aren't deep state operatives out there who still think that they have a chance at winning this war because they don't understand the concept that I've just laid out for you.
I mean, Peter, even Stevie Wonder could see Biden wasn't the real Biden. I mean, Stevie Wonder, people say Stevie Wonder is not blind, but that's a totally different discussion. But I mean, the people that are near to Biden, I mean, they must blow the whistle or spill the beans or, this isn't the real Biden and get the mainstream media behind it. I mean,
well, the white hats would never take that chance. That question gets brought up a lot. Well, what about their family members? What about their friends or whatever?
Yeah.
If there's anybody who would know them intimately enough to be able to blow the whistle, either they were taken off the chessboard and put in some sort of a military prison or something along those lines, or they were put under a non-disclosure agreement. And this is the ugly side of the war. And Rick Bosey talks about, by the way, I'm going to be having him on next Thursday.
Oh, wow,
but this is the ugly side of the war, if you want to call it that. Let's just say the area where there's the gray area in terms of legality, in terms of how this was all prosecuted. A lot of these individuals had guns put to their head and said, you have a very simple choice. You're either going to play ball or you're going to take one between the eyes, or you're going to get locked up in a prison somewhere. So it's probably one of those two things. In terms of their family members, do I think that they're taking their kids and locking them up in prison or anything like that? No, but I believe that they're probably under military custody. Absolutely. Because otherwise there would be no way to be able to pull off this deception if you had people out. And by the way, the other thing you have to remember is, even if they did, let's just say one of these people went rogue and they said, oh, that's not really Joe Biden, and I know, blah, blah. The white hats are in control of the media. They took control. They used the war powers to take control over the media. That's why Q told us that we are the gatekeepers of all, and by all we mean all information. They wouldn't be able to pull off this psyop unless they controlled all of the communications, and particularly of mainstream media. They decide what gets put out there, and they have the ability to be able to stop any of these individuals from quote unquote blowing the whistle. So that's the way I see it, is that some of them, if they were too much of a risk, they had to be dealt with. And let's not forget, a lot of their family members, we'll put the children, obviously the innocent ones, in a separate category, but a lot of their family members were just as guilty. They were part of the crime family. They were part of the criminal activity. So they had to be dealt with. And that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of war. That's the way it needed to happen in order for this to play out this way. But like you said, you'd have to be even Stevie Wonder could see that that's not the real Joe Biden. So you tell me, somehow the White Hats were able to pull that off. Somehow for 4 years, they were able to convince the world that that was actually Joe Biden. And we know damn well it was not Joe Biden. So how did they do it? Well, I just gave you a couple of different theories, but certainly the larger point is they did do it, and they've done it multiple different times.
Maybe decades, but you just mentioned the 4 years of Biden. Is it called the pause? I think it is. Isn't it? 4 years. You said they took the puppet masters out and the puppets and the high tier, the cabal and do you think they're going to use this the COVID lockdown 2.0, the climate lockdown to get rid of the last, or do the final arrests and the low tiers? What do you think?
I don't think so. I think that part is going to have to be seen by the people. In other words, I don't think that there's going to be during actual COVID. Yes, indeed, there was a lot of that stuff covertly going on. I think I brought that up a moment ago. But at this stage of the game, and listen, anything is possible. But at this stage of the game, I don't think, first of all, I don't think that the lockdowns would be effective again, because too many people would just flat out defy them at this point. And I honestly believe that we've hit a critical mass with that. I don't think that if they tried to implement COVID style lockdowns in America again, that people would go for it. not after everything that's come out since then. Are there a certain category of people that would? Absolutely, but not nearly the amount. I mean, just look at the amount of people who are actually getting COVID shots now. It's like, it's like what? A fraction of a percent of people that are actually still going out and getting booster shots. I mean, you have to be clinically insane to think that that's a good idea. And unfortunately, I have some people in my family that are in that category, but still in all, I don't think it would work, number one, but perhaps more importantly, I think it's vital that at this next stage that, and you and I kind of talked about this backstage before we started today, sooner or later, there has to be a mass conflagration of tensions, and it has to be optical. People need to see it. You look at what Nayib Bukele did over in El Salvador, okay? Different country, obviously, a very small country, only about 6 million people, different constitution, things along those lines. But the reality of the matter is that he declared a national emergency and essentially invoked emergency powers in order to basically to conduct mass arrests. That's what happened. They arrested over 80,000 gang members, and this all happened after it was a weekend, I believe. I don't remember the year, but it was somewhere around 2019, 2020, where there was like 80 something murders, gang murders in 1 week and like one day, and things were just out of control, spiraling out of control, and he just dropped the hammer. But the point I'm making is that in order to do that, in order to really drop the hammer, the people need to see the chaos. They need to see whatever it is that they've got scripted for us in order to justify the open military presence on the streets of America and for any other country, I would argue. So the next phase of it, I don't believe is going to be covert. I believe it's going to be very overt for all of those different reasons. And indeed, somebody put El Salvador might be the beta test. Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think that's exactly right. And it's interesting because Bukele just put out a post today, which I found very interesting. I'll go ahead and share it. I don't know if you saw this, Maestro. Since we're on the subject. So he put out this video. And look what he said. I put this as a com. Block by block, it'll take a while, but it'll turn out beautiful. Let me just go back here. And he's showing the before and after of when he started, before he took power and after they dropped the hammer and they cleaned things up. Watch how dramatic the change is here.
I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to be. Each step I take, I shift, I rise. The past dissolves before my eyes. I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to be. Each step I take, I shift, I rise. The past dissolves before my eyes.
So
this isn't AI. This is it. Patriot?
No, this is real. This was actually put out by Bukele, and he put block. And this is the key part here: block by block. It'll take a while, but it'll turn out beautiful. Now, again, this is a very different situation. I mean, you think about it, because a lot of people say, well, it's kind of the blueprint. Why can't we do that here in America? Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's not as simple. First of all, the size of the country. Okay, we're talking about a country that with I think roughly around 6 million people that even was essentially under control of gangs. I mean, that was the primary problem there. That of course have all ties to the cabal. We know that, but the people still retain their culture and their unity around this idea of being enslaved by these gang members, and therefore Bukele is, my understanding, is the lowest approval rating he's ever had. The lowest was in the mid 80s. And he's got something like for most of his tenure, he's had a 94% approval rating. That's what you call unity. All right. And the United States,
we've had many examples in the history, haven't we, in the past?
right? But
Of,
when you
of
look at the
leaders.
US, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Like Mike King has mentioned a lot of times, if you look at Kim Jong-un, if you look at Adolf Hitler and all these guys, and Putin as well, Putin's got a very high rating at the moment, and
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, they were all evil, They weren't evil.
Right. Yeah. If the cabal
were
calls
evil.
you evil, then that's a pretty good litmus test right there. We often use the Time magazine one as well. If they do a puff piece for you on the Time magazine, you can tell that's one of Satan's minions. And if they attack you, the opposite is true. And indeed, they attacked Bukele for all of those reasons, because this guy, he got a super majority in the legislature there, and he was essentially able to strong arm all of these emergency measures through. And in certain cases, he used some pretty persuasive tactics by having military actually show up in the government halls as they were voting on things. I mean, he basically, it was a hostile takeover. But the point being is that he had the hearts and minds of the people behind him. He had the support of the country behind him. And that's ultimately what we're building toward to this day. And it's taking a long time. And I think that calm that Bukele is saying there is like block by block, bit by bit. It takes a while, but in the end, it's all going to work out, and it's all going to be beautiful. And you see the dramatic difference there. They went from these, poverty, these favelas, these, ghettos essentially, and they've cleaned it up, and it's a world-class country now. And it's in fact the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. It went from being the murder capital of the world, literally the murder capital of the world per capita, to the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And he was able to do that because he had the military, of course, on his side, but you have to have the hearts and minds and the will of the people behind you in order for that to be effective. We know that Trump has had the military behind him since day one. They were the ones who basically said, we need you to be the head of the front man for this military operation. But getting the hearts and minds of the people, that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, we've been propagandized and divided in so many different ways. Heck, we could do an entire show just talking about the ways that the cabal has divided us over decades and decades and decades. And so when people say it's taken so long, and this and that, I get it. But think about how long it took us to get to this point.
People, the majority of people have no idea. I mean, they've grown up in this slave debt system. They have no idea how bad it is. And we've done our research in the last, in my case, the last 6 years, and you've been doing your research far longer, and Mike King even longer than that. But we can see the game that they've been playing for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years.
Yeah, well, they didn't have control perhaps hundreds of years ago, but certainly this was a struggle between good and evil that goes back to ancient times. This is just the modern.
Planned. It's all been planned,
right? And even if you want to go back to in American history, and this is why Mike is such a useful source of information, because he can explain it better than anybody. The cabal really didn't have. He's tracked it in Europe, and it wasn't really until after Napoleon fell that the cabal really took hold in France and in England.
The Rothschilds. Yeah.
And likewise in America, it wasn't until after 1913, and they got Woodrow Wilson in, and they were able to get they established the Anti-Defamation League right alongside the income tax, the IRS. I mean, all these things. So that was really when they sank their hooks in America. And then they culminated their coup d'etat, if you will, a very long process with the killing of John F. Kennedy. And then after that, essentially what we had was nothing but cabal control, complete control over this country. And that's going back now into the early 60s. We've been under this system, and it's only gotten progressively more aggressive and more divisive, and the tactics and the technology, all scientifically based, used to weaken and divide and to make the people sick and poor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, has been going on for decades. They've been in full control for decades, and thank God, not of the military. That was the one area where they didn't have full control, and there still were patriots embedded in the military who ultimately rose up to manifest this resistance that became Q. But the point being is that this is a very long, this is a long, insidious program. The cabal were generational thinkers. They planned decades, if not hundreds of years in advance. I mean, think about it. They brought up the modern concept of Zionism. All right, it goes back to ancient times. A return to Zion was what they called Israel back in those days. Like that idea, that mentality goes back to ancient times. But the idea of the political movement of Zionism, that didn't show up until the late 1800s.
Yeah, Basel.
And then it wasn't until 1948 that plan came to fruition. It took two world wars to get them there. So that's how long they plan in advance.
Yeah.
So we have to be patient and understand that in order for us to have a society, a country that looks like El Salvador, with 94% of the people, isn't that an interesting number? Because Q told us 4 to 6% would be lost forever, which put us right around that 90. For us to get to that point, there's a lot of things that need to be undone. A lot of things that need to be undone. And I personally trust Trump. I trust the military. Do I get frustrated? Do I sometimes get into that mindset? Oh, it's taken too long, this and that. Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, the reality is, folks, if you really want an honest picture, I'm giving it to you here. This is the truth. This is what we're up against. And you cannot have a unified country just like that. Not even over, even to say like over the period of 10 years that they could undo what took decades, if not centuries, for the cabal to implement. I really think even that is kind of a difficult argument to make. And yet still in all, look at everything that's being exposed right now. That's what I look at as, forget about all the optics, focus on the substance of what is being exposed right now. We're seeing, sure, we haven't seen the reenactment of justice yet. We haven't seen the major arrests and all those things. I get it. And there's frustration that I feel as well. But the walls are closing in around the structure, the power structure of the cabal. And these things are being exposed historically that would never, ever see the light of day. And if you doubt that, just tune into my show with Mike King every week. We talk about this all the time. Things that you would never see ever play out in a world where the cabal was in control, we now see routinely. And it's only getting more and more intense. The BB files that were just released by Tucker Carlson, proving that Bibi Netanyahu used Qatar as a conduit to funnel $35 million a week to Hamas. $35 million, by the way, that was paid for by our tax dollars. Okay, all of this stuff is coming out. You really think that the cabal is in control? And I could go on and on and on for days giving you examples of things.
You remember?
Go ahead.
Do you remember this, Patriot? This?
Yeah, Q, you were actually the one who pointed this out to me. I remember a while back you did a show and you posited that idea. Like, is it possible that they actually removed all the Palestinians and took them out of there and put them in Qatar and to create the optics of this wag the dog situation in Gaza? Did you ever ask Mike King about that? I'd be curious to get his take on that. But I mean, at the time,
I've asked my barber, my hairdresser. I see he's a Palestinian.
Yeah,
and I always ask him how are things at home. He's got family. He's got relatives. They live in Riyadh, I think it's called Riyadh or something like it. There.
Riyadh, yeah,
Riyadh. And I always ask him how are things there. Only thing he can say is bad internet. I think, come on, tell us a bit more. But he doesn't say a thing. So I think he's got a gag order or something or NDA. He's not saying a word. So it's a bit strange. If things are so bad there, he would have said, "Oh, my relatives, my family's been," he would.
Well, we say this all the time. At this point in time, everybody out there has one of these.
Yeah.
And so, everybody is a potential citizen journalist and can take real time pictures and videos of all of these things and put them out on the internet. Why are we not seeing that? Well, we did point out that the White Hats are in control of all of the media infrastructure worldwide. Let's not forget, this is a worldwide operation.
Yeah.
And, some people, they tend to downplay that, and they don't think, oh, they couldn't control it. Yes, they can. They control all of the choke points. You don't understand, when the military takes over and it's a worldwide coordinated operation, they control all of the choke points, and they can decide what gets out and what doesn't. The same thing that the cabal, again, if you believe that the cabal was going to be able to do this to us, that they were going to be able to control any information, anything that we talked about using AI for censorship reasons and so on and so forth. If you believe that was possible, then why do you have a difficult time believing that the good guys wouldn't use that as as part of the psyop?
Yeah.
For a good reason. I mean, that's the other thing. People need to understand the capabilities of military intelligence. They can do these things, folks. It's not inconceivable. So to ask that question, well, where are all the videos of people taking footage, and whether it be in Gaza, whether it be in Iran, and to add another layer to that, if this stuff is all going on and it's all organic, why are we seeing so much AI footage being put out there? I talked about this on a recent show in terms of Iran. Just about, I mean, literally, even if you go into Grok and you say, like, what percentage of the videos and the photos that are coming out about the Iran war, they say it's an unprecedented number of fakeries of AI. Why would they do that? Why would you need to create fake images of a war if a war was actually going on? You have to just kind of, operate with a little bit of common sense there. The White Hats are controlling all of this stuff. And I said, I don't believe that it's strictly all wag the dog necessary. I mean, it could be, but I don't go that far. I leave open the possibility, because Q told us, basically only 20% of what we see is the truth of what's going on, and about 80% is beneath the surface.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some kinetic action going on, but the storyline that they're creating and all of this fakery that they're using, it's so obvious, it's so over the top. And like we say all the time, if it's over the top, it's enough. There's no need for this unprecedented, like you said, off the charts use of AI to create the illusion of a war when a war is already going on. If a war is already going on.
Yeah, I mean, we know Trump sued the BBC for fake news propaganda, and why doesn't he go after CNN and MSNBC and all the others? Because he has the power, and we know Trump does everything by the book, the military. But why doesn't he activate the Smith-Mundt Act, or doesn't he need it?
Well, I don't really think that they need it, quite frankly, under the circumstances, because everything is already under the control of the military. Whether they use that optically as a tool to perhaps expose the media further,
it would accelerate the things, Patriot, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility, and I've considered that as an option. If they suddenly, again, this is all theater. I don't believe that they don't need the Smith-Mundt Act when the military is operating under continuity of government war powers. They don't need this. They just simply take over. But if they wanted to use that as a tool to further expose the media, it would be very clever to say, well, under Obama, we had this modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act, which essentially legalized state-run propaganda against its citizens. The type of thing that the CIA and all the intelligence agencies were only supposed to do in enemy countries during wartime, they did to us. They propagandized us. So if Trump were to come out and say, well, we're gonna go back and we're gonna slash that, we're gonna go back to the original version, we're gonna outlaw this, etc., and the media keeps lying and they get caught in the lies, that would be an interesting way of exposing them as enemy operatives, just as Q told us. Certain media assets are going to be jailed as deep cover operatives because they knowingly perpetrated these lies in order to support these cabal operations, these treasonous operations. So a lot of them are going to be, they're going to face the ultimate consequence for that. So it's a possibility in terms of how they script it, but we'll have to see what happens.
What Doe Almo says here, Smith-Mundt Act doesn't need to be activated. It's ongoing since 2012. Is that correct?
I don't really think it's, quite frankly, like I said, I don't think it's. I believe the War Powers Act supersedes the Smith-Mundt Act, is my understanding. I mean, I don't pretend to be an expert in that, but the Smith-Mundt Act, again, my understanding is that if that back in, it was in 2012, I think, under Obama,
Yeah.
where it was modernized to essentially legalize state-run propaganda. All right, and it's, at least optically on the surface, that's never been reversed, right? So one would think that that they still have the legal structure, the media still has the legal structure in order to basically take all of their talking points from the intelligence agencies and propagandize the people. What I'm saying is that when they took over using the War Powers Act and emergency powers, et cetera, and took over the media, I don't remember the actual statute numbers. Somebody out there might know them, but they do exist, and they actually did a more limited version of this because technology was primitive compared to today. But back in World War II, this was something that they did as well, taking control of radio stations, et cetera. So I believe that superseded it.
Yeah. Should we just go to Robert Mueller page yet? Because he was, I think he was a White Hat, wasn't he?
I believe he was. And this was something that it took a little bit of convincing. Again, we got to give Mike King his propers here, because he was the one who really pointed this out, that Robert Mueller, most of the Q drops, and I think I have the boards up here. Robert Mueller, if you put him into the Q search engine here, you're going to see 81 posts that mention him. Yeah. And most of them are in a very negative context. But there are a few, and this is where that mention of disinformation being necessary is, I think, very applicable to something like this for deep cover operatives like Mueller. So Mike points out, of course, he's a Marine, Semper Fidelis, like always faithful. But going back to some of the drops, I can't remember the exact one. He asked a specific question. See if I can find it here. Who appointed Mueller as special counsel? Oh yeah, it was drop 3177. I got it right here.
Have you got it there? Pull it up.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
And we actually talked about this on a recent show. So why didn't POTUS fire our Rod Rosenstein after reporting read the offer to wear a wire? I'm going to skip down here. Who signed off on the Mueller summary report submitted by Barr yesterday? Who signed fraudulent FISA warrants? Who appointed Mueller as special counsel? Who has full control? Now, it was Rod, in my understanding is, if I remember correctly, it was actually Rod Rosenstein who appointed Mueller as special counsel. But the next couple of lines in that drop are quite interesting. Who has full control? Optics are very important. So, and there were a couple other drops, I believe, that mentioned Mueller in a different, more positive light. Not so much in a positive light, but in Q's Socratic method of asking questions in order to get you to question the narrative out there that they're putting out this overwhelming amount of negative stuff on Bob Mueller in order to give him cover. And this is something that I've talked about more recently in terms of Joe Kent. Same basic principle also applied to Jeff Sessions, and also applied to, I believe, Ron DeSantis and others who have had these Elon Musk, who have had these kayfabe-like feuds with Trump in order to provide cover for them to carry out operations on the information warfare battlefield. And I believe that Robert Mueller opened the door to a lot of the opening up these investigations in order to legally inject, like Q asks us, how do you legally inject evidence that was obtained? It doesn't say this, but that was obtained illegally. How do you do that? Well, you have to cook up these raids. You have to You basically have to stage these raids so that they can go in there and they can find things that were planted there. And that's how you do it. Because again, going back to World War II era, the Army Signal Corps and the Venona intercepts, as Mike has talked about many times, the militaries had patriots embedded for a very long time who were able to surveil and come up with very, very damaging evidence against these evil people. But the problem is that they haven't been able to do anything with the evidence because it's been obtained illegally. So a big part of the Q operation was using people like James Comey, using people like Bob Mueller as white hat plants, essentially, to sign off on all of these investigations under the optics that they were going after Trump. But notice how they never actually found anything incriminating on Trump, but they did get Podesta and so forth.
It's like all these raids on Mar-a-Lago and Rudy Giuliani as well. And
Right. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just this Donald Trump posted this as well. Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. I mean, this, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it fits the basic profile. This is what it's what he's done multiple different times in order to conceal. It's not so much concealing the operation anymore, but in a sense of it being ongoing, but concealing the way in which it was conducted. He still has to make Bob Mueller at this stage, it seems, to make Bob Mueller look like a bad guy.
Do you think he's in witness protection, Patriot?
It could be. I mean, the guy was what? He was like 81 years old, supposedly. Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe he actually did. Maybe he actually is dead. I don't know. There's a possibility there that he just took one for the team, as they say. But it could be that he's just off sipping margaritas somewhere and enjoying the good life. We don't really know. But
sitting next to Charlie Kirk.
Right, exactly. It would not surprise me in the least bit. And let's not forget that we've been hearing all of these comms seeming to point us in the direction that Russiagate is very much coming back into the spotlight. And so what's Trump going to do? Is going to come out now and start singing Bob Mueller's praises? No, he's going to thicken the fog of war. He's going to increase the camouflage. Yeah. In order to spin the psyop and the narrative as necessary.
This is unbelievable. This makes me think of this short clip, Patriot. It's this one.
As the world watches and listens in horror, the peaceful pro-democracy demonstration in China comes to a violent and bloody end.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering do or die around me. You say your last good night while I
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
The ammunition used by Cywar.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldier, and at the same time
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
Gripping at my skin, the walls of night closing.
But the use of this force as an integral part of combat has now taken on new form.
As I wait to say my last goodbye.
These are the Psy-War soldiers.
Could you explain what that is, the fourth POG? Can you dive in it?
Yeah, the fourth psychological operations group, or 4POG as it's typically called.
Yeah.
Some call them the ghosts in the machine. They've kind of made their presence known increasingly. That video has been out for a while now, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sure most folks have seen it, but it's really it's giving you a sort of glimpse of how operations really work around the world to move the chess pieces. You see that there are several shots there where it shows chess pieces being moved and how they use fifth generation warfare. It's essentially a snapshot, if you will, showing how the psychological operations group that is stationed at Fort Bragg, I believe, is more or less they're the ghosts of the machine that pull the strings behind the scenes, and they create the illusions that change people's perception of world politics and how far back this goes. I mean, heck, they show you clips in there of the falling of the Berlin Wall and multiple different, I think there were some clips in there of China as well. So this is a worldwide organization. I mean, not 4POG specifically, but indeed it has its counterparts all over the world in different military installations. That's why we've said many times, this is not strictly, it's a U.S. led, clearly a U.S. led operation. We call him Commander Trump for a reason, but they're coordinating with the patriots in the military, specifically in special forces and in the intelligence communities all over the world, in order to conduct these psychological operations to pull this off, to win the hearts and minds of kind of what we were just talking about in terms of, Bukele and El Salvador. How do you change? It's one thing to have kinetic policy changes, regime changes, et cetera, but it's another thing to steer the direction of human consciousness the way you want it to go, specifically to reverse so much damage that has been done, while this same the same ghosts in the machine for a long time. They were the deep state, when they were in control, had access to the same type of warfare techniques. They use this to our detriment. That's the other thing you got to remember. So again, the White Hats are taking over, not just in terms of the media. We talk about that all the time, how they've taken control of the illusion making machine of the media, but it goes far just beyond. The mainstream media is really just it's a tool of the intelligence agencies. And now that the good guys are in control, they're reversing all of these operations. Indeed, they're still psyoping the population, but for good reason, steering us in the right direction. That's kind of, I guess, an oversimplified take on that video, but that's essentially what we're looking at.
Yeah, sounds logical. I mentioned this as well in the introduction, Patriot. The EU is turning. I mean, they're going to tackle migration. We've got this as well: chat control. EU Parliament stops mass surveillance and voting thriller. And we've also got this. removing all US tariffs. Are we seeing here, are we looking at a controlled absolute demise of the NATO and the EU in real time, do you think?
Yeah, I believe we are. And I also believe that that's a big part of the operation that's taking place in Iran. Is that it's being used as we notice how Trump keeps making comments about NATO and they're, we're there for them, but they're not there for us when we need them, et cetera, et cetera. First, England didn't want to get involved. Then they said, okay, we'll send a couple of aircraft carriers. And Trump said, forget about it. We don't need it anymore. So that's a big part of the PSYOP as well. And what's already been accomplished behind the scenes, I believe, is that, the EU is theater at this point, as is NATO. And what's really happening right now is that they're running these PSYOPs in conjunction with the United States, of course, appearing optically to take on Iran with Israel without Europe's help in order to deepen this divide and to and I believe the ultimate end game is going to be the dissolution of these organizations, because if the United States pulls out, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line.
Paper tiger. I've got a short clip here of the what was it? It was a cabinet meeting or something on the 26th. It's this one.
We're very disappointed. I'll say it publicly. We're very disappointed with NATO because NATO has done absolutely nothing. And I've always said 25 years ago, I mean, I was somebody that wasn't a politician, but I was always involved in politics and I understood politics. I said 25 yees ago that NATO's a paper tiger, but more importantly, that we'll come to their rescue, but they will never come to ours. And I want you to remember that we said this. They didn't come to our rescue. Now they all want to help. When they're annihilated, the other side is annihilated, they said, we'd love to send ships. Nobody's a match for the United States, but they're not a match for the United States. It's small potatoes. That's why I'm so disappointed in NATO, because this was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to, but if you don't have, if you don't do that, we're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember my statements. They have an expression, a great expression, never forget. Never forget.
Never forget. That's often used in what context and on the cue boards?
Yeah.
Never forget. 9/11.
Yeah.
That was a 9/11 comm right there for sure. But yeah, he's using this as, again, to create the optics necessary to pull the United States out of NATO. And once that happens, the whole thing collapses. And of course, the EU is being set up really to side against the United States as well. Where this is going to go in terms of geopolitical standoffs, are we going to see some sort of a World War III scare? There's been a lot of talk about that. Certainly a possibility now that we have Iran going on. There's lots of different ways that you could war game that out. But the point being is that the European Union, the United Kingdom, they're being very clearly shown to not be the great allies that supposedly they're supposed to be. We've been gaslit into thinking that for a very long time. These are our strongest allies, et cetera, along with Israel, of course, but that's a separate conversation that is being saved for last. First, Trump is, he's used the issue of Greenland, the acquisition of Greenland. He's also, pitted Canada against the United States as well. So very interesting to see how they're isolating what we were led to believe our entire lives were our strongest allies, the countries that were going to stand with us in our time of need. And Trump is, somebody put there, Trump's always 3 steps ahead of him. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. He's creating the optics beautifully for us to witness a realignment of geopolitical power structure.
Yes. Has this to do with the Monroe doctrine?
The Monroe doctrine, you mean?
The Monroe, the Monroe. Monroe doctrine, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in 2025, when and again, this is what's so great about Trump. He has a way of catching everybody off guard, 3 steps ahead. I would say a lot more than that, 3 steps at least. in terms of Canada. I mean, it's like all of a sudden out of nowhere, he was talking about acquiring Canada, talking. I mean, Greenland is a different story. That's actually been a debated foreign policy position in the United States for a very long time. Never actually came to fruition, but that's something that's been kicked around before. But Trump reignited these topics again to, I think, to do exactly that. When that new geopolitical structure that I was just talking about a moment ago is going to be largely centered around what was known as the Monroe Doctrine, which is that the United States essentially would control and have sovereignty in the Western Hemisphere and exert its influence in that way. And we're already seeing that happen. We saw it happen with Venezuela. Again, optically, of course, we can debate that all day, going in there with the discombobulator and just pulling Maduro out of there in the middle of the night. And Trump he's also talking quite a bit about Cuba, saying that Cuba is next. They're going to be the next ones to fall. He's also mentioned
they've already had blackouts as well, eh?
Total blackouts. Yeah. So again, make of that what you will. But he's also mentioned Colombia in the context of that conversation. Certainly Mexico as an
South American. Yeah.
So yeah, this is it's very interesting. I think that's the direction that we're headed. And again, it kind of feeds into that sort of frustration that we have here about things aren't happening fast enough on the domestic front. This is it's a very complex layout in terms of how they're rolling all of this stuff out. It seems like they're prioritizing this geopolitical shift first before they get into the real hammer dropping type of events domestically, although that could change tomorrow. We never know. That's the thing. I mean, you could sit here all day long. It's like those memes of, me trying to figure out Trump's next move. And it's like the guy next to the, on the whiteboard drawing lines in a million different directions. We just don't know. And that's the thing. They're creative geniuses. And as I've said before, I made the case that they've augmented this with AI, bare minimum, AI that we probably can't even conceive of, to keep us constantly guessing, but always off the trail in terms of the direction that they're headed. That's a key part of fifth generation war, right? It's like, look over there. They want to draw our attention over there and thinking that they're going to go in that direction. And then all of a sudden they go and they do something else to keep us up. But it's all for good. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to stay with the cabinet meeting on that 26th of March, a few days ago, Scott Bessent, what is he? Is he Minister of?
He's a Treasury Secretary.
Treasurer. Yeah. He was called central casting.
250th anniversary. America will never be safer and more secure militarily and economically. Thank you.
I just want to ask you a question. Is this guy central casting? I'm looking at him. I'm in Treasury. He might not be so good for war. I don't know. No, I'm looking pretty good too. I'm looking at this guy. He's central casting. Even the glasses are perfect. Where do you get those glasses? I think I'm going to get glasses. That's beautiful. Great job. That's really good. No, he's done a great job.
I watched this meeting. It's full of comms as well, and I caught this. This caught my eye as well. I don't know if it's anything, but this Q Post 34. They zoomed in on Steve Witkoff, and you got these three, and you got these 4 cups at 34. I mean, we will be initiating the EBS to provide a direct message to all citizens. It's Post 34, my fellow Americans. I don't know, maybe something, maybe nothing. What do you think?
So you're saying like the 3 stripes on the flag, is that what that is?
And the 4 cups.
And the 4 cups. I mean, I don't know. That might be a stretch. Not sure. But certainly that drop has been hit a number of different times. And I've also I've referred to that really as one of the fundamental Q posts, like one of the pillars of the Q operation, is because it really, I think it's one of the only times that it's that the emergency broadcast system, emergency alert system is mentioned on the boards. There might be one other drop that mentions it.
But what's also mentioned is the national presidential national message, something like it. So they don't call it always the EBS or the EAS or the EAM, emergency alert message or emergency alert system, but they also call it
EAS is what I've heard. Yeah,
presidential message or something like it. Mike King will probably know.
Yeah. It's
But this is
referred to in different ways, but
sorry.
no, I mean it's referred to in different ways. But the important aspect of it is that to me it paints a very interesting picture about what the end game is going to look like. A lot of people have posited the theory that the early Q drops give us a lot of insight or foreshadow how the movie's actually going to end. In other words, they were kind of rolled out in that way. Who knows? We don't really we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But I often get asked that question: do I still think we're going to see an EBS? Do I still think we're going to see these mass public riots and all that stuff? Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. Because, yeah, I mean, someone wrote EMS captured audience. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure what that comment means, but if it's, it certainly is the way to grab and hold the attention of the entire country. It's one of the themes of our discussion tonight and earlier, even before we started. How do you actually get people to kind of come out of their slumber and to force the consciousness of the entire country, indeed the entire world, in a certain direction at a certain time at a certain moment? Well, I don't really think there's many other tools in their arsenal to be able to do that, and we've seen multiple different EBS comms. They keep popping up. I remember just at the Super Bowl there were a whole bunch of them. The entire color scheme was EBS colors. They were broadcasting live from Alcatraz. And there was a whole bunch of stuff. There was the Bad Bunny song that was blackout or something. I think it was translated to blackout or power outage or so they
must
keep
have they must have a blast making this page. They must be laughing the socks off her.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, are they doing all this for no reason? I don't think so. Why would they go through all of this effort to put out these comms that a relative small portion of the public is even going to pick up on? That's the thing. I mean, you stop and think about that for a second. I mean, how many individuals out there watching the Super Bowl are going to look at that and say, wait a second, that's like the same scheme as the emergency broadcast system. I mean, we're talking about like a fraction of a % of the population that's even going to talk about that. And the vast majority are going to go, you guys are absolutely insane. So why would they continually put this stuff out there if it wasn't a comm, if it wasn't an indicator? Just like I talked about this with Mike as well. I just mentioned never forget in 9/11. Someone just wrote like 9/11 looping the images nonstop. But 9/11 never forget. I mean, the plane collision with the fire truck at LaGuardia Airport. First of all, LaGuardia of New York, of all places. And we were absolutely peppered with these images of the entire plane basically just being ripped off after a relatively, in comparison to a jet flying in to a steel building with reinforced steel concrete building, a relatively minor crash, and look at what it did to the airplane. Is that a comm as well? I mean, they keep putting this stuff out there over and over and over again. And to me, this is a very clear indication that they're speaking directly to us. And if it was all a psyop and none of it was actually going to happen, then they wouldn't bother. They wouldn't need to. Yeah. Because we're such a very small portion of the population that's even going to pick up on it.
Yeah. This was very significant as well. Very significant moment, this one.
Pepe is a great friend of all of ours, I think, in the room. Tremendous. And we appreciate you being here. Great to have you. Thank you.
Of all the names, it chooses Pepe. It's just unbelievable.
Oh, there was also a Pepe comm at the Super Bowl. I forgot about that one too. Yeah. It was I forgot the name of the character, but it has something to do with Puerto Rican culture. But there's a frog. It was a frog character that showed up on the big screen, just as he was doing his whole blackout song routine.
Yeah,
it just goes on and on. My goodness, it's like at this point you could write encyclopedia volumes full of all the comms that they've been hitting. and giving us and hitting the cue boards. It's just, and there are a lot of other Anons out there who, they follow this stuff at a granular level, like Stormy Joe.
He's brilliant.
Absolutely genius. I don't think there's anybody better than Stormy Joe at connecting those dots and being able to pull all the comms out. Absolutely incredible. Dave at News Treason does an amazing job. Rambo does a great job with the comms. I kind of look at things more from like a 40,000 foot view. And I learned from these guys as well, just to, it infuses it into my analysis just to, to strengthen the overall narrative, which all of us in essence are pretty much in agreement on. We don't have the script. We don't know the direction that they're going to take it definitively, but that's all by design. If we could figure it out, it would be a very good plan.
Yeah, these are the guys that we have to follow, that people have to follow. I mean, you as well.
I highly recommend following them for sure. I don't tell people generally, like I never tell people who not to follow. Like I'm not that guy who's going to say, don't follow this one, don't follow that one. But I will tell you who I think you should follow. And those guys are right up at the top of my list. And for good reason, Ricardo Bossi's another one. Yeah. Mike King, certainly we've mentioned multiple times tonight. There's a reason I have Mike on once a week. These are the people that I rely on in large part to keep myself informed. They're the cutting edge in terms of being able to dissect and interpret and convey the events that are unfolding in this fifth generation war in real time. And there's an increasingly growing audience for exactly that purpose. People want to be informed. These are the guys who are going to keep you informed. And I'm glad that certain people consider me as a part of that group. I'm glad and honor.
If you look at the developments now, Patriot, we've got Christy Norms being fired. We've got Pam Bondi having a difficult time. Howard Lutnick, Cash Patel accused of being a porn addict under the username Spider Cash, and his girlfriend, of course, Alexis.
I didn't really look into that. Was that actually real? Was that element of it real about Cash Patel?
I mean, what's going on?
I do know that there was supposedly, and I found this very interesting, there was supposedly an Iranian, whenever I hear Iranian state level anything, immediately my mind goes to Mossad. Because for the past several years now, as we call the New York Times, the Q York Times, again, going back to the general the big picture understanding that it's the white hats who are actually controlling the media, and the New York Times has always been considered the paper of record. They've been reporting now for years on Israeli, specifically Mossad intelligence operations inside of Iran. So whenever I see that, I immediately think Mossad. But anyway, they supposedly they got a hold of, they hacked his account and they got a hold of some personal emails and some photos. And I had heard the thing about porn, but I didn't know if that was actually real. At this point, it all appears to be relatively innocuous type stuff. But one of the things that I've noticed is that that's kind of how the white hats tend to roll things out. They don't come out with the hardcore stuff right away. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if this is the first release of perhaps other releases. And wouldn't it be I actually put a post out on this. Let me pull it up so I can just read what I wrote. This was just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Follow Patriot on X, people. Follow Patriot.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. That'd be awesome if people could follow me on X. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, yeah, here I got it here. Let me pull it up. So yeah, there you go. There's these photos here of Cash. He's making some pretty interesting facial expressions. This guy.
Which one is it? Oh yeah, I've got it here.
Yeah. So this was a post. This was supposed.
He looks as if he's on coke.
Well, people say that. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some photos of Cash that are pretty suspect.
Big eyes.
Yeah, for sure. So who knows? But the important, and that could play a role. I mean, if it turns out that this is how they're scripting the whole thing with Cash being compromised, that's sort of where I was going with this. It would explain a lot of things. So I said, these images. This was put out. This was all over all over X. This particular handle happened to be International Cyber Digest, saying that his Gmail account was hacked by Iranian nation state hackers. But it's essentially nothing damning in there. Not, a lot of people say, oh, it's just a nothing burger. But the white hats sometimes, in fact, very often, this is how they operate. At first, you think it's a nothing burger, but then it escalates. So is it possible that we're going to see subsequent releases that reveal, as I put there, more damaging information, suggesting the possibility that he could be compromised? And even more interesting would be if it was scripted that these quote unquote Iranian nation state hackers were actually Mossad agents. And it would certainly explain a lot of the optics that we've seen out of Kash Patel, specifically in terms of how he's seeming to kind of gaslight a lot of these investigations in the FBI. And the timing is very interesting as well. We've got Joe Kent coming out saying that, oh, we weren't allowed to look into any foreign connections in Charlie Kirk, his assassination. We weren't allowed, that was completely shut down under Kash Patel. Same thing with Butler. Now, this was, of course, before Kash, because it was before Trump was actually president, but same basic principle of the Justice Department and the FBI shutting down investigations, not allowing them to probe any foreign influence. So there's been this kind of question of, well, how are we going to explain the optics of how the DOJ and the FBI are operating? Specifically, it comes up very often with regard to Epstein and the lack of prosecutions and investigations. Why is Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi coming out saying, now there's no evidence that he was trafficking children? We're like, are you kidding me? Have you read the files? I mean, and they're all doing this as part of the PSYOP. So it would be quite interesting if it turned out that perhaps they would script it that way, that Israel, through a proxy of Israel masquerading as an Iranian nation state hacker, which I think is kind of ridiculous anyway to even phrase it that way, was actually Mossad. We'll have to see how they play it, but it was an interesting development, I thought.
Yeah. So we just look at this clip, Patriot. I want your take on this one. This.
March equals madness. Did we just see what we think we just saw?
Yeah, because if you look at the White House X account in the last few days, it's beginning to look like the Q Intel board.
Yeah, no, for sure. They've taken the Q boards and basically made it writ large across all of social media at this point. And I think personally, I think that was always the idea. That's why Q told us to learn our comms and then disappeared for a while and then reappeared. But eventually, the boards were foundational in terms of our understanding of the general framework of the plan, but even perhaps more importantly, to give us the education to put us through decoding, analytical boot camp, if you will, in order to understand things that were going to come much later down the road, to train us, so to speak. So yeah, March Madness for sure.
Yeah. And LM55.
Wilson Frazzledrip. Yeah, good call. Yeah, I didn't pick that up.
Absolutely, yeah. It all ties into Frazzledrip. It ties into the hearings, the Clinton hearings, and the Evergreen. And
it's another great example of what I just talked about, though. Like, other than the people that are watching this, right, and the Q-tards out there, who are a very small portion of the population, who the heck else is ever going to make that connection between Wilson and Frazzledrip? And why would they go through all of this effort if there wasn't something behind it, if it wasn't actually legit? Just kind of throw that out there. I think the answer is pretty obvious. So
yeah, and White House X account posts another few things. This was one. This. Yeah, what do you think about this, Patriot? It looked like a...
Yeah, it was like a one ping type of thing, and it was a quick shot. I believe it was the American flag, if I'm not mistaken. and it happened right alongside all the pixelated images. I mean, I don't know what to make specifically of that in general, but I did put out a post talking a little bit about the pixelated ones, because I think, and in a lot of ways you could kind of expand that basic idea, but it's all about I think there's a couple of different interesting angles on. If you want, I can pull the post up.
Please do that.
Look at it, because a lot of people were sort of baffled by this. Now that one specifically there, I saw that and I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what to make of that. But then we started to see the pixelated images, of course. I think we brought these up a little bit earlier in the show. Let me just find it here. And people are going, oh, who's that? Is that JFK Jr.? What's going on with this and that? And so I thought about it, and I kind of, this is actually a pretty lengthy post, so I don't know if I'm necessarily going to read the whole thing, but I'll just kind of hit some of the highlights here. So we were talking about these images down here, right? So that of course ended up being Trump. That's sitting at his desk at the Oval Office. That's J.D. Vance, etc. So in essence, I more or less pointed out here that, to me, what this is really all about, and I don't want to read through this entire thing here, but these pixelated images to me show they symbolize a plan gradually coming into focus, but serving as a reminder that it can't be clearly seen with the eyes alone. And I talked a little bit in this post about, you can go and read it, but talking about why are they hitting us with all of these cryptic messages? And are they trying to train us to be able to discern, to be able to access perhaps even other senses that have been more or less cut off by the calcification of the pineal gland? I tied in some of the images that we talked about a little bit earlier with Biden looking a lot like the robot, et cetera, et cetera. So that was one way to look at it. But then there was another post. Somebody commented on mine, Homeless Zombie Apocalypse is the account name. A very, very intelligent way to look at this as well. And he pointed out, see if I can find it here. It's a little bit further down. I've been posting a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, here it is. These are my words, but then I actually quoted his comment. He said,
please read it, Patriot.
Yeah, the further you remove yourself from the picture, the clearer it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes on to, this is the comment that he wrote, and I quoted him in it. He said, we're being symbolically encouraged to take the 40,000-foot view, the big picture view, because with all of these pixelated photos, the key to seeing the image more clearly is that you look at it from a greater distance. If you move back from the computer screen about 10 feet, you can see the images better.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So the pixelated images, thus in my mind, are the white hats advising us that we can see better if we take a big picture view and don't get lost in the weeds, small details, etc. Take it all in, connect the dots or the pixels, as the case may be. Wow. So I think that was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant analysis of that. And I also believe as well, the idea of because that was the first thing that came into my mind was like, they're showing us a distorted image. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the way that this plan is being rolled out. It's all distorted. You can't really see it clearly with your eyes. I didn't get the whole stepping back. That was the part that he filled in the blanks there, which is great. But being able to put together the different pieces of the puzzle to create a clear vision of where we're headed. So I think there was probably some element of both. Let's just
and not just step 40,000 feet backwards, but also take the time 48-hour rule or 72-hour rule as well, instead of jumping to conclusions.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So let me my laptop is actually like about to run out of battery here, so I'm just going to turn off my camera really quickly so I can move over there and plug it in. But you can just keep going.
Great. We also saw this on the website. White House website was this. And this is a kind of Beatles clip. We know the Beatles have written music, or Lennon and McCartney most probably didn't write their own music, but they wrote music that you can play backwards as well. And when you play it backwards, you get this. A big announcement tomorrow. Have we heard anything yet, Patriot? Big announcement.
Well, that was yeah. So again, and this is sort of what I tied into my analysis there in that long post that I didn't read, is that there's always a there's always a surface level explanation. So they put out these comms, and then people, because that's exactly what happened with the distorted images. People were just like, oh, once they figured it out, oh, it's Trump sitting at his desk. It's not JFK Jr. That's crazy, whatever. And then people came out with the side-by-side photos, and a lot of people out there were like, case closed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always that surface level layer of plausible deniability. And in essence, to conceal the larger comm and the significance of it from people who think in a very concrete way. So my understanding is that had to do with the release of the new app, the White House app. Okay. And quite frankly, I've been so busy, I haven't really even looked into that yet. But they've released some sort of an informational type app, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And that was in essence kind of like the justification for that, or the pretext for these what we recognize as comms was basically just a hype to hype up this app. Okay, so on one level, that's the explanation for the concrete thinker, but at a deeper level, we can see this is how they communicate with anons. This is exactly the method of taking, I guess you could say, higher level fifth dimension people have already kind of escaped the matrix, fifth dimensional thinkers, and giving us clues and comms about the direction that we're headed. So that's about all I can really say about that one specifically. I mean, some of these, and I think you kind of have to, at least in my view, you recognize the comms for what they are, but I don't get too lost in the weeds in terms of trying to figure out, well, what does it mean? And, I kind of look at it from a big picture perspective. And there are some that I think that are, you can kind of sink your teeth into a little bit more than others. Some of them are just winks and nods to all of us, and just to remind us that the Patriots are in control behind the scenes. And indeed, nothing is what it seems on the surface.
Yeah. Talking of communication, John Solomon made a prediction. He said in the coming 10 days, some other prediction. Do you think it was to scare the deep state, or have we heard anything of I think it was exactly.
What are we talking about? I'm not sure what you're referencing. Because
John Solomon, he was calling out in the coming 10 days, something's going to be revealed, something, but I've lost track of that, or have I missed it?
I think it was something it was either in the context of Russiagate, perhaps, or maybe it was, or it may have actually been having to do with the election theft. I'm not really sure, because he's put out a lot of different statements. But to your point, to your question rather, do I think he's trying to scare the deep state? No, they're already gone. Perhaps there's some element of game theory to pull the strings of their puppets, like I described earlier, the lower level minions. That's always a possibility. And indeed, we can never really look at any action that's taken and just only interpret it in one way at the surface level. There's multiple different objectives that are associated with these operations. That's kind of textbook fifth generation war. But as far as the big name players, the people that are going to be implicated, you know very well my position on that is that what we're watching is a reenactment. We're watching the public rollout, or the scripted rollout, if you will, for the public to digest as the narrative as to why these people were actually brought to justice behind the scenes. That's my viewpoint on it in large part when we're talking about the big players.
Yeah. Trump secured the organization of the Olympic Games and the FIFA World Cup Soccer. We also have the 250-year celebration, but the two first events, do you think this is to draw the last remaining sleeper cells out of the woodwork? What do you think?
Well,
because we've been talking about false flags, and
yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing. When Trump was asked about the Iranian sleeper cells, uh, by a so-called reporter. And I think, again, this is all scripted in my viewpoint. I don't believe any of this is organic. The questions that are being asked and the responses that are being given, I don't think any of it is really off the cuff. But he was asked about Iranian sleeper cells and if he was concerned about them. And his response is, well, we know where most of them are, I think, something along those lines. Do I believe that? Is there always the possibility of a threat, something that perhaps they had not anticipated, or some I that they didn't dot or T that they didn't cross? Sure, it's a possibility. I'm not going to rule that out because we do live in the real world here. But having said that, I highly doubt that after Trump coming back in optically to office for his, what we know is his third term, and locking down the border and deploying all of these law enforcement agents and military all across the country, I think it would be rather odd to assume that they didn't. I mean, let's just approach it from a logical standpoint. If Trump knows where the sleeper cells are, do you really think that the sleeper cells still exist? Are they just going to sit back and wait for them to attack? That doesn't make any sense. And then for him to make a comment like that, it's like, oh, we know where most of them are, we think, or we're keeping an eye on them. Well, logic would tell you, if we're in the middle of a war with Iran and you know where their operatives are, you're going to eliminate said operatives. And does it mean that we're not going to necessarily see the optics of some kind of a terrorist attack? That's not what I'm suggesting. We very well may. And there's been a lot of chatter about the West Coast and drones, perhaps some sort of a 9/11 type replay with Larry Silverstein, who owns the big tower in LA, and he just happened to buy terrorist insurance on it, just like before 9/11. Replays necessary. We might see something along those lines. Tucker Carlson has seeded that narrative multiple times of another 9/11 style attack perpetrated by Iran to justify boots on the ground. We're hearing that the 82nd Airborne is being sent over there. More and more ground troops are building up. So who knows? That could be part of the movie. But I don't think that there's a real organic threat of Iranian terror cells. Logic would dictate that they would know where these operatives were, and that they would actually remove them before you were going to launch an attack on Iran that would certainly trigger all of these individuals. So I believe, I guess the short answer is I think they've already been taken care of.
Yeah. One of my last questions: what is the role of Mark Rutte and the NATO at this point?
Well, I think he might actually be. Well, I don't know if I call him a white hat, but yeah, central casting, because he's been saying a lot of positive stuff about Trump.
Daddy.
What's that?
Daddy Trump.
Yeah, right. Daddy
Trump. Daddy, yeah, something like it.
Yeah, and he defended the Greenland, the acquisition of Greenland. He's talked a lot about, Trump's right. NATO really has to start. These other countries really have to stop just depending on the U.S. and they have to do their part.
I don't think he's a white hat, because I don't think he can con the Dutch people into Rutte being a white hat. He's very, very evil.
Well, there is I guess you could speculate all day. Was he a plant all along? Probably not, because of some of the actions that he's taken. But again, Q encouraged us on multiple occasions to define cover. But my instinct with somebody like him, who has a long history of doing bad things, shall we say, is that he's either been replaced or he's been put under submission. That's my take on that. And NATO, we really already discussed a little bit earlier, is that the Iranian war specifically is being used to drive this wedge further between the U.S. and its so-called NATO allies. That's going to ultimately lead to its dissolution. And that in and of itself changes the entire geopolitical picture. And specifically, it affects Ukraine as well, because it's largely been a war that's been backed by NATO, if you want to believe that that's actually not that's actually going on over there as well. I think most of that is wag the dog.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Peter, it's been a fabulous conversation. Have you got any predictions or any final thoughts for for today, the last Saturday in the month of March?
Well, my only prediction is expect the unexpected. And quite honestly, I stopped making, trying to figure out, because there's a part of me that's the way my brain works, is I like to strategize and war game things.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent the first few years of my podcast trying to do that. And, it's like I said, this would not be a very good plan if people like myself could figure out what the next moves are. And there are a lot of people out there who are just completely brilliant minds who can't even begin to strategize and war game. I mean, we can think in terms of, and that's why I call it the big picture, 40,000 foot view. We can think along those lines, and we can interpret the events in line with the objectives of the Q operation. That we can do, and function as Mike King likes to call us, like we can be film critics. We can watch how the movie is playing out and connect the dots and speculate a little bit about the direction that we're headed. But the only thing that I've learned is that what's important is keeping your eye on the trajectory of the operation, the direction that we're headed, and how all of the events, how the substance of what's being revealed, not so much the optics, but the substance of what's being revealed, is taking us closer to that end game. And like I said, it's very interesting that the nation that's being saved for last, that gets referenced so often, it seems like all roads are leading back in that direction. I mentioned a little while ago, I'm keeping a very close eye on this whole situation with Joe Kent. I happen to think he might not be the first. He's the first in the Trump administration to supposedly defect, which I don't believe at all. I believe he's a white hat plant, not a plant, but he's a key player in the white hat operation.
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily he's going to be the last. There may be some others who step away. Some people have speculated about Tulsi Gabbard as a possibility. One never knows. But the Easter timeline, Stormy Joe's been talking a lot about that in terms of wrapping up the Iran war. So I'm keeping sort of a close eye on that to see what direction we go there. But like we talked about earlier, the fact that they're reintroducing these ideas about JFK Jr., the walls seem to be closing in around Israel, the BB files coming out, the Joe Kent story, connecting all the dots, all of these. Anytime he brings up foreign influence or a foreign investigation that was shut down, it's always tied back to Israel. So these are all very positive indicators. Those are the barometers that I'm keeping an eye on. And I guess in the bigger scheme of things, of course, there's been a lot of discussion about this summer being the 250th anniversary of the Republic. Certainly would be a very dramatic time to have the movie come to a close. That would be very nice. But at the same time, I'm not going to set any expectations as far as that goes, because that's the other lesson that I've learned, is that pretty much every time I do that, I'm just setting myself up for more disappointment. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm sitting back and doing the best I can to ignore all the noise, focus on the signal, and just enjoy the show, and just take a moment to really appreciate the historic time that we're in. That's what I encourage everybody out there to do.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we've had enough rug pulls as well.
There's going to be more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. It's going to be a wild ride. I mean, 2026 has been pretty crazy so far. Not to mention 2025. It's been increasingly, they're just ratcheting up the optics of insanity and chaos towards the end. What did Q tell us? The deeper we go, the more unreal it all becomes.
Yeah.
The ending won't be for everybody. And to me, that drop has never been more relevant than where we're at right now. March Madness, we spent today talking about it, and it's going to get even crazier from here. So my hope is that we're in the final stages, but wherever they're taking us, I'm here for it. I'm along for the ride, and
only at the precipice.
What's that?
Only at the precipice will the people, find the will to change. Yeah, and that precipice could be very personal. It could be, Is it going to be
I believe
EBS?
all of us have already hit the precipice. I don't think that anybody would be watching this show and listening to me if they hadn't already had their precipice moment, if you want to define it that way. But in another sense, there's also the other way to look at it, which is from a world standpoint, the normies, bringing the normies to the precipice.
That's what I mean.
And I still think we have a little ways to go in order for us to get there. So I just encourage folks to take a deep breath. And if you get overwhelmed, just take a step back, get off of social media for a couple of days, allow yourself a little bit of rest, and then come back and continue where you left off. And so but it's an incredible time to be alive. It's history. It's historic. Everything that we're talking about right now, it's truly a blessing to be able to be alive and to be awake and aware and to be in a position of understanding, at least at some degree, what it is that we're witnessing, the dawn of a golden age. So.
And Q has always said it's going to be biblical. No, Easter's coming up, so anybody that celebrates Easter, we want to wish everybody a very happy Easter. It might be a very, very special Easter this year. We don't know, eh?
We hope, but again, I would say to folks out there, people are talking about my fat ass cat. Yeah, he likes to make appearances behind me. He's a sweetie though. So, yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, you should probably do the very best you can to not set artificial timelines. Not that I think you are, but, we have a tendency to do that because we all want this to be over. It makes a lot of sense that we do, but we just don't have any way. We don't have the script. We don't have a timeline. So the reality of the matter is that if we start thinking in terms of, well, Easter's coming up, so that means everything's going to be wrapped up, or it's like we've cycled through that so many different times with different events, thinking that we were right at the climax of the movie, and like you said, only to experience that rug pull. And I've kind of come to the conclusion, Maestro, and I'll just leave it. I'll say this in closing, that it's kind of up to us to decide the degree to which we suffer through this process. You can either take a 40,000 foot view and just say, we're in the middle of a war right now and things have to play out, and they're going to play out however they need to. Because I've made the case many times that really what this is a spiritual war. This is an ancient war, the culmination of an ancient war between good and evil. Yeah. Therefore it's God's timeline. And however long it takes. So certainly we all want to be alive and we all want to witness it and we all want to enjoy the golden age. And I don't believe that Trump would continually be saying golden age, the best is yet to come to a bunch of people who weren't going to live to see it. That doesn't make any sense to me. So we are going to get there. But the degree to which we suffer, I think, is in large part our choice. If we don't set ourselves up with expectations, and we just take a step back and we just enjoy the process. I mean, that's why Q told us over and over, enjoy the show. Q didn't tell us, keep making predictions, keep speculating, keep, setting artificial goalposts. That's the antithesis of what we were encouraged to do. Yeah. And absolutely, God's time, not ours. Nailed it right there. So that's what I would encourage everybody, because otherwise you're just going to, you're going to set yourself up for disappointment, and then you're going to be more susceptible to all of these black pill narratives. You don't want to go down that road, folks. Patriots are in full control. But as we've outlined tonight, this is a very large undertaking to unify the country around core principles after decades, if not centuries, of being essentially divided against one another. So just be patient. It will happen one day at a time. God wins.
Patient, thank you very much. It's been a terrific, show. I would like to thank all the listeners as well. I hope they've enjoyed it. So please take the time to smash the like button. It's very important for the algorithms to get us up there and share the news. Smash both the like buttons on both live streams, Patriots and mine, because we're live streaming it simultaneously. And like I said, we wish everybody a very happy Easter if you celebrate it. Take the time to relax and enjoy your family, and hope, just it's in God's hands. Yeah?
Yep. He is risen, folks, and he is in control, in full control. And patriots are in full control. So just have faith, and take some time to enjoy, as they say, smell the roses a little bit, enjoy those around you. I know that the holidays can still be really difficult for people, myself included, because of what this war has done to families, unfortunately. But it is my firm belief that that's going to be a big part. It's not just about vindication, but it's also about the healing process. Truth and reconciliation with those that we love is going to be one of the sweetest fruits of victory. So, just hold the line, but again, take some time to be good to yourself. And indeed, thank you folks so much. We had a great audience tonight or today, I should say. I'm always impressed the amount of people that decide that they're going to tune in on a Saturday afternoon. So I love you guys. I really do appreciate that. Yeah. Del Elmo says, put down the phone and touch some grass. Absolutely. Go out there and ground yourself. I actually got myself a little grounding mat. So when it's too cold out, I can just sit down and ground myself a little bit and just, and get yourself refocused and rebalanced, because we are in a war. It's a psychological war. It takes a lot out of us, and we're here to support one another, but we also have to, keep each other on the right track. We have to take care of each other and take care of ourselves. So thank you so much, Maestro, for hosting today. You do an amazing job. And as like I say, I'm limited on time these days, so I have to be rather choosy about who I decide I want to do shows with. And you and I go back quite a ways now. We've been working together for, I believe, probably at least 3 years at this point, since our first show. And I have a great amount of respect for you and for your audience.
It's mutual. It's absolutely mutual. I mean, you're a true treasure to the movement, Patriot. So
thank you.
Keep up the good work. And
I just do the best I can. I tell folks, I told everybody from day one, I'm not an expert in anything. I don't pretend to be, but I'm just a patriot who has a viewpoint, and who will present my views and my analysis to you. And fortunately, a lot of people have really enjoyed and they've inspired me to continue. I just celebrated 5 years. So thank you, everybody, for your support. I certainly never would have been able to do this for 5 years if it weren't for all of my amazing, amazing followers out there. So, and by the way, if you're following my channel and you're not following Maestro, please take a moment. It's so easy on Rumble to hit that thumbs up button. And, if you haven't I know a lot of people out there, it's like they just click on the link and they watch the video, but they're not actually signed into Rumble. That's why we get sometimes, a few thousand live listeners and only a few hundred likes, because people haven't taken the time to just do that. But it helps us out enormously, folks. And not just us, but it really, like Maestro was saying, it helps to get the show on the leaderboard and to get this information, not for our own ego purposes. I don't care about that, but to get this information out to a wider audience. That's really what this is all about. So please take a moment to do that if you haven't already. And I appreciate it. So God bless everybody.
Patriot, we're going to wrap up with a clip. It's called Destruction of the Old Guard. You might know it. It's about the capitulation tour. Tour of Donald Trump. For people that haven't seen it, I think Joe M made this. Is it Joe M?
If it's the one I'm thinking of, this is a classic. This is a classic. It's been circulating now for quite some time, but it's always worth coming back to remind us, going back to foundational principles of how this operation is rolled out. Donald Trump went on a capitulation tour in his first term, started with Saudi Arabia and so forth, and worked his way all throughout the Middle East and then into Europe, the city of London, etc. Well, actually, I don't think he went to the city of London. That was like one of the few places he didn't go. But the point being is that
he met Elizabeth.
He did the United Kingdom, but I don't believe he ever actually went into the city of London.
No.
But in any event, the point being is that it's important to go back and revisit where we came from, because here we are in 2026, and this all played out almost a decade ago. So take a look.
Absolutely. Patriot, thank you very much, and wish you a wonderful weekend. And also the people that have watched, our audience, have a wonderful weekend. and we'll be seeing each other next the next last Saturday in April. So
yeah, let's take a quick peek at the calendar. We got the last Saturday in April looks like April 25th.
Oh wow,
That'll be our next one. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, Patriot, and we'll just watch Destruction of the Old Guard. So we'll see each other the next time. Thank you very much.
God bless everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.